The room is still, and the world outside is asleep. There is a profound quiet in the house, a stillness broken only by the faint hum of a distant appliance and the sound of your own breathing. Yet, within the theater of your mind, a storm is raging. The body is tired, longing for rest, but the mind refuses to yield. It leaps from a conversation yesterday to a deadline next week, from a regret about the past to an anxiety about the future. The glow of the phone screen casts a pale blue light onto the ceiling, a portal to a world of endless distraction that offers no real solace. This experience, this feeling of being awake and alone in the middle of the night, is not just a fleeting inconvenience. For many, it has become the silent anthem of modern life, a familiar state of being where the body lies in a bed of perfect comfort, while the mind wanders through a landscape of unrest. We call it insomnia, we call it stress, we call it anxiety, but these are merely names for a deeper condition, a symptom of a spirit that has forgotten how to be still. The profound exhaustion we feel is not just in our bones, but in our very soul. But what if the answer to this deep weariness is not found in a better pill or a more sophisticated sleep tracking device? What if the constant struggle, the fight to force our minds into submission, is itself the very source of the problem? What if the way forward is to turn inward? 2,500 years ago, a man who came to be known as the Buddha, the Awakened One, sat and diagnosed this very same human ailment. He was not a god, but a profound physician of the mind. He saw that the root of our suffering, our restlessness, was not in the world outside, but in the frantic, unobserved workings of our own consciousness. The path he offered was not a battle against the darkness, but a gentle journey to rediscover a silence that already exists within each of us. It is a path of healing, not through fighting, but through understanding, not through force, but through a tender and compassionate attention. This is an invitation to walk that path, to learn the ancient art of calming the storm within, so that we may finally find rest, not just in our beds, but in the very heart of our being. To begin this journey of healing, we must first be willing to diagnose the condition, to look directly but gently at the nature of the storm within. That ceaseless, churning, and often exhausting activity in our minds, the one that keeps us awake at 3 a.m, has a name in Buddhist psychology. It is called the monkey mind. The image is a powerful one and remarkably accurate. The mind, in its ordinary, untrained state, behaves like a wild monkey, leaping restlessly from one branch to another, never staying still for more than a moment. It swings from a branch of memory, replaying a conversation from years ago, then instantly leaps to a branch of future planning, worrying about a meeting next week. From there, it grabs onto a branch of pure fantasy, a daydream, before being startled by a branch of anxiety, a sudden, nameless fear. It chatters endlessly, pulling at our attention, demanding to be entertained, and reacting to every passing stimulus. Some ancient texts take the analogy even further, describing it not just as a monkey, but as a drunken monkey, one that has also been stung by a scorpion. This adds layers to our understanding. The drunkenness represents the mind's confusion, its diluted state, its inability to see things clearly. The scorpion sting represents the pain of craving and aversion, the constant sting of wanting something we don't have or wanting to get away from something we do. This is the state of our mind, not because we are broken or flawed, but because this is the baseline condition of an unobserved human consciousness. It is crucial to understand this from the outset. The monkey mind is not a personal failure, it is a shared human inheritance. So, why is our mind like this? Why this incessant internal chatter? The roots are both ancient and modern. From an evolutionary perspective, this restlessness was a survival tool. The minds of our distant ancestors needed to be constantly scanning the environment, on high alert. Was that a predator in the bushes? Is that a source of food? What is that unfamiliar sound? A mind that was quiet and placid was a mind that might not survive the day. This built-in threat detection system, this constant scanning for problems and opportunities, is wired into our very neurology. The monkey was a lookout, a guardian, The problem is that this ancient software is now running in a completely different world. We are no longer in the savannah, but our brains don't necessarily know that. The perceived threats are no longer saber-toothed tigers, but an unanswered email, a critical comment on social media, or the monthly credit card bill. The mind still scans with the same primal urgency, but the dangers are now abstract, chronic, and often creations of the mind itself. And this is where the modern world pours gasoline on the fire. We now live in a digital jungle with an infinite number of branches for the monkey to swing from. Every notification, every email alert, every news headline, every social media post is a new branch. We are conditioning our minds, hour by hour, to be more distracted, more fragmented, more agitated. We actively train the monkey to be frantic. We scroll through our phones while watching television. We listen to a podcast while answering emails. We have created a culture of perpetual partial attention, and we wonder why we cannot find stillness when we finally lie down to sleep. The constant influx of information and stimulation throughout the day doesn't just disappear when the lights go out. It has to be processed. The monkey, having been given a feast of distractions all day, is now at its most hyperactive, and the quiet of the bedroom becomes its chaotic playground. This leads us to a vital distinction we must learn to make, a fundamental skill in the art of finding peace. We must learn to differentiate between useful, directed thinking and the useless, chaotic noise of the monkey mind. Useful thinking is a tool. We can pick it up to solve a specific problem, like planning a healthy meal for the week or thinking through the steps of a project at work. This kind of thought is often linear, logical, and has a purpose. It moves from a question toward an answer. When the task is complete, we can put the tool down. The monkey mind, however, is not a tool we are using. It is a force that is using us. It is mental noise. It is the endless looping of a song in your head, the replaying of an awkward moment from the office party, the catastrophic what-if scenarios that have no basis in reality. It is repetitive, circular, and deeply unproductive. It does not move toward a solution. It simply spins in place, generating friction and heat, which we experience as anxiety and stress. The first, and perhaps most revolutionary step in this entire journey, is not to stop the monkey mind. That is impossible, and trying to do so will only lead to frustration. The first step is simply to notice the difference. It is to cultivate the ability to recognize in the moment, this is just the monkey. This is not me. This is not useful problem solving. This is just noise. This simple act of recognition, of labeling the activity without judgment, is the beginning of freedom. It creates a sliver of space between you, the observer, and the frantic activity of the mind. At night, the consequences of an untamed monkey mind become painfully clear. During the day, its frantic energy is dispersed. We are engaged in work, in conversations, in tasks that demand our attention. The monkey has external branches to leap to, but when we turn off the lights and lie down in the quiet, we take away all of its external toys. The monkey, now bored and full of restless energy, turns its attention inward with ferocious intensity. The silence of the room becomes a megaphone for its chatter. Every unresolved issue, every small worry, every lingering irritation is amplified 100 times. This is why it can feel like a form of torture, a battle against your own mind. You feel trapped. The more you desire sleep, the more the monkey seems to delight in keeping you awake. You command it to be quiet, and it screeches louder. You plead with it to rest, and it does a backflip. This struggle, this war with our own mind, is utterly exhausting, and it is a war that can never be won by fighting. This brings us to a timeless story, often told to students of meditation who are frustrated with their own restless minds. A young, earnest student came to his teacher and said, "Master, I am trying so hard to meditate, but I cannot. My mind is out of control. I try to force it to be still. I wrestle with my thoughts. I try to banish them, but the more I fight, the more chaotic my mind becomes. What am I to do?" The teacher smiled with great compassion and said, "Let me tell you about how one might catch a wild monkey. If you run into the forest, shouting and crashing through the undergrowth, trying to grab the monkey, what will it do?" The student replied, It will become terrified and flee, climbing to the highest branches where I can never reach it. Exactly, said the teacher. The more you chase it, the more agitated and fearful it becomes. Your mind is this monkey. Your efforts to force it into submission are this chase. The teacher continued. But what if you were to go to a clearing in the forest where the monkey plays, and instead of chasing it, you simply sat down, quietly, at a distance, and in the middle of the clearing, you placed a delicious piece of fruit, like a mango, and then you simply waited, patiently and silently. The student pondered this. I suppose, he said, that eventually the monkey's own hunger and curiosity would overcome its fear. It might approach cautiously, and if it sees that I am not a threat, it might come and take the fruit. The teacher nodded. Precisely. The mind is the monkey. The chasing is your resistance, your anger, your frustration with it. The quiet sitting is the practice of gentle, non-judgmental awareness, and the fruit is the simple, nourishing anchor of your own breath. You do not tame the monkey by fighting it. You create a calm, inviting, and safe space, and you allow it to settle down on its own accord. This parable holds the entire secret. Our task is not to cage the monkey, to silence it, or to destroy it. Our task is simply to stop chasing it. It is to learn how to sit by the clearing of our own awareness and to observe its antics with a kind of gentle, detached curiosity. When we do this, something remarkable happens. The monkey, no longer fueled by our resistance and frustration, begins to slowly, over time, calm down. This is the first step on the path to inner silence. It is not an act of aggression, but an act of profound friendship toward our own mind. But as we sit and watch, we might begin to wonder about the landscape itself. What is this forest the monkey is swinging through? What is the fundamental nature of this restlessness and dissatisfaction it constantly feels? To understand that, we must look even deeper to a core teaching of the Buddha, a universal truth he called dukkha, the truth of our shared human experience of unsatisfactoriness. As we learn to sit quietly, simply observing the frantic antics of the monkey mind, we begin to notice the terrain it inhabits. We see the landscape through which it swings with such restless energy. This landscape, this general atmosphere of our inner world, is often one of subtle but persistent unease. The Buddha gave this fundamental condition a name. He called it dukkha. This Pali word is often translated into English as suffering, but that single word is too heavy, too dramatic, and can be misleading. A better, more nuanced understanding of dukkha would include words like unsatisfactoriness, stress, dis-ease, or the feeling of a pervasive, low-grade friction in the machinery of life. It's the feeling that things are just not quite right, that something is subtly out of joint. This is the first noble truth, the first and most foundational observation the Buddha made about our experience. It is not a pessimistic declaration that life is miserable. It is a realistic, compassionate, and ultimately liberating diagnosis. It's like a doctor telling you that you have a fever. It is not a moral judgment. It is simply a statement of fact, the necessary first step before any healing can begin. To acknowledge dukkha is to finally be honest about the nature of our unexamined experience. To truly grasp this, it helps to understand that dukkha manifests in three distinct, though interconnected, ways. The first is the most obvious, what is called dukkha, or the suffering of pain. This is the raw, undeniable discomfort of life. It is the pain of a headache, the sorrow of loss, the sting of harsh words, the anxiety of a financial problem. In the context of our sleepless night, it is the physical discomfort of a tense body, the burning sensation in tired eyes, the restless energy in our legs, the palpable feeling of anxiety in our chest. This form of dukkha is easy to recognize. It is the first arrow, the unavoidable pains that come with having a human body and heart. The second form is more subtle. It is called viparinama dukkha, or the suffering of change. This points to the profound truth that even our pleasant experiences are tinged with unsatisfactoriness because they are impermanent. Nothing lasts. The joy of a beautiful sunset is fleeting. The pleasure of a delicious meal ends. The happiness of a long-awaited vacation inevitably fades. This creates a subtle, underlying anxiety. We try to cling to pleasant moments, and we suffer when they pass. We fear the loss of what we hold dear. During a sleepless night, this form of dukkha is powerfully present. It can manifest as the memory of how good it felt to sleep soundly on a previous night, and the painful contrast with the present moment. It is the anxiety that this current state of sleeplessness will ruin the next day, a day we hoped would be pleasant and productive. The very desire for a good night's sleep creates suffering because it sets up a dynamic of clinging to a desired outcome and fearing a different one. The happiness we seek is conditional and fragile, and therefore it is a source of dukkha. The third and most profound form is sankhara dukkha. This is the suffering of conditioned existence itself. It is the most pervasive and hardest to see. It is the background hum of unsatisfactoriness that comes from being a self made up of constantly changing physical and mental components. It is the inherent friction of being a finite, vulnerable entity in a world of endless flux. It is the subtle but constant effort of maintaining our identity, defending our ego, and navigating the world. Most of the day, we are distracted from this background hum by work, entertainment, and 1,000 other tasks. But at night, in the silence and the dark, the distractions fall away, and this foundational dis-ease, this sankhara dukkha, can become deafening. It is the very engine of the monkey mind, the base-level anxiety that keeps it searching, planning, worrying, and resisting. It is the feeling that something is fundamentally missing, a hole that can never quite be filled. A sleepless night, then, is a perfect laboratory for observing dukkha in all its forms. The experience is not just an annoyance, it is a profound teaching if we are willing to look. We are presented with the raw pain of discomfort, the anxiety that comes from the changing nature of our states, and the deep underlying restlessness of our conditioned mind. Acknowledging this is not meant to create despair, it is meant to create wisdom and compassion. We see that this is not a personal failing, it is a universal condition. The person sleeping soundly next to us, the people we see on the street tomorrow, everyone to varying degrees experiences dukkha. Our personal struggle is a part of a much larger human story. This understanding leads us directly to one of the most practical and transformative parables in all of Buddhist teaching, the story of the second arrow. The Buddha once asked his followers, "If a person is struck by an arrow, is it painful?" The followers replied, "Yes, Master, it is." The Buddha then asked, "And if that person is then struck by a second arrow, right in the same spot, is it not even more painful?" The followers replied, "Yes, Master, it is doubly painful." The Buddha then explained, "The first arrow represents the unavoidable pains of life. It is sickness, loss, old age, and not getting what we want. In our case, the first arrow is the simple, physical reality of being awake when we wish to be asleep. It is the initial discomfort, the raw sensation. This first arrow is, to a large extent, not a choice. It happens. The second arrow, however, is the one we shoot at ourselves. It is our reaction to the first arrow. It is the proliferation of thought and emotion we pile on top of the initial pain. It is the story we tell ourselves about the first arrow. The second arrow is the voice that says, "This is a catastrophe. I cannot stand this. I will never fall asleep. Tomorrow is going to be a complete disaster because of this. Why does this always happen to me? I am a failure at sleeping." It is the anger, the fear, the anxiety, the self-pity, and the resistance. This second arrow, the Buddha taught, is optional. It is self-inflicted suffering. An unwise person, one who is not trained in awareness, gets struck by the first arrow and then immediately shoots themselves with the second and often a third and a fourth. They are consumed not so much by the initial pain, but by their reaction to the pain. A wise person, a practitioner, still feels the sting of the first arrow. They do not deny the pain. They feel the discomfort of being awake. But they have trained their mind not to fire the second arrow. They feel the sensation, but they do not add the story. They see the thought, "This is terrible, arise," and they recognize it for what it is. Just a thought, a reaction. A second arrow lands, they let it go. This is the practice. When you are lying in bed and you feel the first arrow, the heat, the tension, the restlessness, the practice is to acknowledge it with as much neutrality as you can muster. Ah, this is the feeling of being awake. This is the first arrow. And then you watch for the second arrows. You watch for the mind to offer up stories of panic and despair. And when they arise, you simply note them. Ah, there is a story about tomorrow being ruined. That is a second arrow. I do not need to fire it. You breathe. You come back to the raw sensation of the first arrow over and over without adding the poison of the second. This practice is not easy, but it is life-changing. It radically reduces our suffering because we come to see that most of our anguish is not caused by life's events, but by our own commentary on those events. This brings us to the profound power of acceptance. Refusing to fire the second arrow is the ultimate act of acceptance. It is a courageous recognition of reality as it is in this moment. It is not a passive resignation. It is not giving up. It is a wise and powerful choice to stop fighting a war against reality. Fighting reality is always a losing battle, and it is always exhausting. By accepting the first arrow, by allowing the present moment reality of sleeplessness to be what it is without resistance, we rob it of its power to create mental anguish. The pain may still be there, but the suffering is dramatically lessened. The wound is clean. It is not infected by the poison of our own minds. So we see that the landscape of our mind is defined by this subtle unsatisfactoriness, this dukkha. We see that our struggle with sleep is a masterclass in its nature. And through the simple, profound image of the two arrows, we discover the possibility of freedom. We find that we have a choice. We can learn to experience the unavoidable pains of life with a certain grace, without adding the immense and unnecessary burden of our own reactions. But this discovery inevitably leads to a new question. What is it inside of us that is so deeply conditioned, so quick on the trigger to fire that second arrow? What is the engine that drives this constant reaction of craving for things to be different and aversion to things as they are? The Buddha's diagnosis did not stop at identifying the symptom. He pointed with unwavering clarity to its source. And it is to that source we must now turn our attention. Having seen the symptom, the pervasive fever of unease we call dukkha, and having witnessed how we ourselves intensify it with the second arrow of our own reactions, we arrive at the physician's next question. What causes the fever? What is the engine that drives this reactivity? What is the force within us that so compulsively loads that second arrow, draws the bowstring, and lets it fly? The Buddha's diagnosis was precise and unflinching. He identified the root cause with a single, powerful word, tanha. In the ancient Pali language, tanha literally means thirst. It is a craving, a longing, a burning desire that lies at the very heart of our restlessness. This is the second noble truth. If the first noble truth diagnoses the symptom of our disease, the second noble truth identifies its cause. It asserts that the origin of our unsatisfactoriness is this deep, insistent, and relentless thirst. This thirst is not a simple concept. It manifests in three primary forms, each a different flavor of wanting, each contributing to the noise in our minds. The first, and most easily understood, is kamatana, the craving for sense pleasures. This is the thirst for agreeable sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations. It is the desire for a delicious meal, the pleasure of beautiful music, the comfort of a warm embrace. In the quiet of the night, this thirst becomes acutely focused on the craving for the sensation of deep, blissful, uninterrupted sleep. We long for the feeling of letting go, the comfort of the blankets, the physical release of unconsciousness. The very intensity of this wanting creates a tension in the body and mind that becomes a barrier to the very thing we crave. We are so thirsty for the experience of rest that we cannot relax enough to allow it to arrive. The second form is more subtle and psychological. It is bhavatanya, the craving for being or becoming. This is not just a thirst for a sensation, but a thirst for an identity. It is the deep desire to become something, to perpetuate a certain story about ourselves. It is the craving to be a person who is healthy, a person who is in control, a productive and successful person. When we lie awake, this cherished identity is threatened. The story we tell ourselves, I am a person who gets 8 hours of sleep and performs well, begins to crumble, and the mind panics. It generates endless thoughts about how to fix the situation, not just to get the sensation of sleep, but to preserve the ego identity of being a good sleeper. This thirst for becoming a future, more rested version of ourselves pulls us violently out of the present moment. We are not lying in bed, feeling the sheets in our own breath. We are living in an imagined future, either a blissful one we crave or a disastrous one we fear. The third form is the other side of the coin, the shadow of craving. It is vibhava tanha, the craving for non-being or annihilation. This is aversion. It is the intense desire to get rid of something unpleasant. It is the violent push against our present reality. When we are lying awake, this thirst manifests as the desperate thought, I cannot stand this feeling anymore. I just want this wakefulness to stop. I want this anxiety to go away. This is the energy of resistance. This is the engine of the second arrow. We are at war with the present moment, trying to annihilate our experience. This craving to not be awake is just as powerful and just as much a source of turmoil as the craving to be asleep. The mind is now caught in a perfect trap, a vicious cycle. It is simultaneously pulling toward a desired future, sleep, and violently pushing away the unpleasant present, wakefulness. This dynamic of push and pull, of grasping and resisting, is the storm. It is the noise. The very mechanism we use to try and find peace is the source of our agitation. This internal mechanism of thirst is amplified immensely by the world we live in. Our modern culture is a grand temple dedicated to the worship of Tanha. Advertising, social media, and consumerism are all designed to do one thing, to make us feel thirsty. They create a sense of lack, a feeling that we are incomplete, and then they offer a product, an experience, or a lifestyle as the solution to quench that thirst. We are trained from birth to believe that satisfaction lies just outside of ourselves, in the next purchase, the next vacation, the next promotion. This is the great deception that fuels our economy and our anxiety. This brings to mind a powerful and sobering parable. Imagine a person adrift on a raft in the middle of a vast ocean. They are dying of thirst. All around them is water, an endless supply. In their delirium and desperation, they cup their hands, scoop up the ocean water, and drink it down. For a brief, fleeting moment, the coolness provides a phantom of relief. But the salt in the water immediately begins to dehydrate their body, and within minutes, the thirst returns, now more raging, more desperate than before. In their confusion, they drink again and again, each time deepening their dehydration, each time intensifying the very suffering they are trying to end. This is the nature of Tanha. It is salt water. Our attempts to satisfy the thirst of craving by chasing after the objects of our desire, whether it's a new phone, a higher status, or even a perfect night's sleepus, like drinking salt water, it provides a momentary illusion of satisfaction, but it ultimately deepens the underlying condition of thirst. The more we get, the more we want. The more we achieve, the more we fear losing it. We try to solve the fundamental problem of our inner lack by consuming the very things that perpetuate it. At night, this plays out with tragic precision. The thirst for sleep makes us try harder. We might take a pill, buy a new mattress, listen to a specific frequency. These are all attempts to drink the salt water. They may offer temporary relief, but they do not address the underlying thirst, the frantic energy of craving and aversion itself. In fact, by turning sleep into another project to be managed, another goal to be achieved, we often intensify the bhavatanha, the craving to become a perfect sleeper, and thereby deepen our anxiety. The true path to healing, then, begins not with trying to quench the thirst, but with learning to see it. The practice is to become a curious and compassionate scientist of your own mind. As you lie in bed tonight, instead of being a victim of the storm, Try to be an observer of the weather patterns. Watch for tanha to arise. Can you feel the subtle but insistent pull towards the idea of sleep? Can you feel the tension that arises in your jaw, your shoulders, your stomach, when the thought, I want to sleep, appears? That is tanha. There is no need to judge it or suppress it. Just notice it. Ah, there it is, the thirst. And then watch for the other side. Notice the push, the resistance. When a car passes outside, or your partner snores, or an anxious thought arises, can you feel the subtle clenching, the mental flinching, the inner voice that says, no, not that? That is aversion, the other face of Tana. Just notice it. Ah, there is the pushing away, the craving for this to be different. By simply noticing, by observing this constant push and pull without getting swept away by it, we begin to change our relationship to it. We stop being its slave and start becoming its observer. We see the salt water for what it is, and we can begin to make a conscious choice not to drink it. We see that the engine of our suffering is this relentless cycle of wanting and not wanting, and this seeing is the beginning of wisdom. We have now moved from the symptom, dukkha, to the cause, tanha. We have accepted the physician's diagnosis. This is a monumental step, a turning point in our journey. It shifts the entire ground beneath our feet. We see that the enemy is not the sleeplessness itself, but our thirst for it to be different. This realization begs the next, most important question. If fighting our thirst, or frantically trying to satisfy it, only makes it stronger, what is the alternative? What is the physician's prescription for this condition? This leads us away from the path of brute force and struggle, and onto a path of profound skillfulness and grace. It leads us to the liberating art of working with the energies of our mind rather than against them. It leads us to the healing power of acceptance and the wisdom of letting go. Having traced the symptom of our restlessness, our dukkha, to its root cause, the burning thirst of craving and aversion we call tanha, we are left standing at a critical juncture. We have seen the trap. We feel the compulsive pull toward what we want and the violent push against what we don't. Our most basic, deeply ingrained instinct, when faced with this uncomfortable reality, the reality of being awake, when we desperately want to be asleep, is to fight. We resist. We declare war on the present moment. We believe that through sheer force of will, through struggle and opposition, we can bend reality to our liking. This resistance, however, is the very quicksand that pulls us under. The more we struggle against the reality of our wakefulness, the more tense, agitated, and hopelessly awake we become. It is like trying to flatten a turbulent ocean with a hammer. Our efforts only create more waves, more turmoil. The very energy of fighting is the opposite of the energy of rest. This is where the path of wisdom diverges radically from the path of instinct. The prescription for the suffering caused by Tana is not to fight harder, but to learn the profound and powerful art of acceptance. Now, the word acceptance is perhaps one of the most misunderstood in the spiritual lexicon, especially in a culture that values striving, conquering, and winning. So let us be very clear about what acceptance is and what it is not. Acceptance is not resignation. It is not passivity, weakness, or giving up. It is not throwing your hands in the air and declaring, I guess I'll just be a miserable insomniac for the rest of my life. That is the voice of despair, not acceptance. True acceptance is an act of profound courage, clarity, and strength. It is the active, conscious choice to stop fueling the war against reality. It is a clear-eyed seeing of what is true in this very moment, and a gentle allowing for it to be as it is. It's a whisper in the mind that says, this is the situation right now. This body is awake. There are feelings of anxiety. There is a desire for sleep. I will not add the extra layer of suffering that comes from fighting this reality. This distinction is not merely psychological. It is deeply physiological. When you resist, your body interprets it as a threat. The thought, I cannot stand being awake, triggers the same primal response as a predator leaping from the bushes. The sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight mechanism, kicks into high gear. Adrenaline and cortisol flood your system. Your heart rate increases, Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. Your muscles clench. Your jaw tightens. You are preparing your body for battle. This state is the biological antithesis of the state required for sleep. You are literally commanding your body to stay on high alert while simultaneously wanting it to drift into peaceful slumber. It is an impossible contradiction. Acceptance, on the other hand, is the key that unlocks the door to the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest mode. When you consciously choose to soften around your experience, to allow it to be there without fighting it, you send a powerful signal of safety to your brain and body. By intentionally relaxing your shoulders, unclenching your jaw, and allowing your belly to be soft, you are giving your nervous system permission to stand down. Acceptance is the physiological invitation for rest to occur. You cannot force a flower to bloom by prying its petals open. You can only provide the right conditions of soil, water, and sun, and allow it to unfold in its own time. Acceptance provides the fertile soil for the flower of sleep. There is a powerful story from the life of the Buddha that perfectly illustrates this principle. A rival, in a fit of jealousy, schemed to have the Buddha killed. He arranged for a notoriously fierce and wild elephant named Nalagiri to be intoxicated and let loose on the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. As the elephant charged, trumpeting with rage, everyone fled in terror. They resisted the reality of the charging elephant, and their reaction was fear and flight. This is our typical response to the raging elephants of our own mind-sour panic, our anger, our insomnia. We either flee from them through distraction or try to fight them head-on. But the Buddha did not move. He did not run, and he did not prepare for battle. He stood perfectly still, grounded and present, and looked at the charging beast not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a suffering being. He radiated a powerful, unconditional energy of loving kindness and fearlessness. He met the elephant's rage not with opposing force, but with an all-encompassing field of calm acceptance. The effect was miraculous. As the elephant entered this field of profound peace, its rage began to subside, its charge slowed to a walk, its intoxicated fury dissolved, and it knelt respectfully at the Buddha's feet. This is not just a myth, it is a profound teaching on the nature of the mind. The raging elephant is our own agitated mind in the middle of the night. It is our anxiety, our frustration, our panic about not sleeping. Our instinct is to meet its rage with our own. I hate this feeling. Go away, which only makes the elephant more furious and powerful. The Buddha's approach is the path of acceptance. It is to meet the intensity of our inner state, not with resistance, but with a firm, gentle, and compassionate presence. It is to say to our own anxious heart, I see you, I feel you, I will not fight you, I will not run from you, I will stay here with you, and I will offer you my kindness. When we can do this, the raging elephant within us begins to calm. It feels safe. The war is over. So how do we practice this in the most practical of terms when we are lying in bed, caught in the grip of wakefulness? It begins with noticing. First, you must notice the resistance itself. Become aware of the signs. Is your stomach in a knot? Is your forehead tense? Are your fists subtly clenched? What is the story playing in your head? Is it a story of struggle and victimhood? Simply notice this. The second step is to gently name it. You can say silently to yourself, resistance. I am fighting with reality right now. This act of labeling creates a space of awareness. You are no longer completely identified with the resistance. You are the one who is observing it. The third and most crucial step is a conscious act of softening. This is an embodied practice. Intentionally, consciously, allow your shoulders to drop away from your ears. Let your jaw go slack. Allow your hands to unclench. Let your belly be soft and receptive. Imagine the tension melting out of your body with each out-breath. This is the physical act of dropping the rope in your tug-of-war with reality. Finally, you can gently shift your inner dialogue. Instead of the harsh commands of resistance, like, I must sleep now, you can introduce a whisper of allowance. A simple phrase like, it's okay, the body is awake right now, may I be at peace with what is. Or even more simply, the ancient mantra, this too, acknowledging that this experience, like all others, is temporary and present. By practicing in this way, we fundamentally alter our relationship with the night. The night ceases to be an enemy to be conquered, and the bed ceases to be a battleground. We discover that our goal is not necessarily to fall asleep immediately, but to find peace with being awake. And paradoxically, this very peace is what so often allows sleep to arrive, unbidden, like a gentle guest. Acceptance ends the war. It ends the suffering about not sleeping, which is almost always worse than the simple physical sensation of being awake. It creates a quiet clearing in the noisy jungle of the mind. The struggle is over, the tension is released, and in this newfound space, this quiet, peaceful clearing, what shall we do? We now have the opportunity to introduce a gentle, stabilizing anchor, something to keep the mind from being pulled back into its old, habitual patterns of struggle. And for this, we turn to the most simple, profound, and universally available tool we all possess, a tool that is with us from the moment of our birth to the moment of our death. We turn our attention to the simple, rhythmic, life-giving reality of the breath. We have laid down the weapons of resistance. We have stepped out of the battlefield of the mind and into the quiet clearing of acceptance. The war with the present moment is over. But we know the nature of the monkey mind. It is a creature of deep habit. Left unattended in this newfound quiet, it will soon grow restless. It will search for familiar branches of worry and planning to swing from. The silence itself might feel unsettling at first. Therefore, in this clearing, we need a focal point. We need a place to rest our attention, a gentle point of return that can hold us steady. We need an anchor. The Buddha offered a tool that is exquisitely simple, universally available, and profoundly powerful. This practice is called anapanasati. It is a word from the ancient Pali language, and it can be translated simply as mindfulness of breathing. This will be our anchor. But why the breath? Of all the things we could focus on, why this simple, repetitive biological function? There are several reasons for its unique power. First, the breath is always with us. From the moment we are born to the moment we die, it is our constant companion. It is utterly reliable. You don't need to find it. It is already here. Second, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot take a breath that is in the past, nor can you take one that is in the future. To be aware of your breathing is to be anchored in the now, the only place where life is actually happening, the only place where peace can be found. Third, the breath is neutral. Unlike our thoughts and emotions, which are often charged with judgment, history, and narrative, the breath is just the breath. It is a simple physical sensation, free of baggage. It provides a clean, clear, and safe place to rest our minds. Finally, the breath is the bridge between our conscious and unconscious worlds, the meeting point of mind and body. While it happens automatically, we can also influence it consciously. This gives us a unique access point. A restless mind creates a restless breath, but we can use the reverse of this equation. By consciously bringing a gentle awareness to the breath, we can soothe the mind. It is a direct biofeedback loop to the calm centers of our nervous system. The practice itself is one of radical simplicity. It is not about doing anything, but about noticing everything. There is no special posture required. As you lie in bed, simply find a position that feels comfortable and sustainable. Give your body permission to be at ease. You do not need to change your breath in any way. You are not trying to breathe deeply or slowly or in any special rhythm. The breath knows how to breathe. Your only task is to let it be and to feel it. The invitation is to become a curious and gentle observer of this natural process. You can begin by choosing a spot on your body where the sensation of the breath is most vivid for you. For some, this is at the tip of the nostrils. You can rest your attention there and simply feel the subtle sensations of the air as it enters and leaves your body. You might notice the slight coolness of the in-breath and the subtle warmth of the out-breath. There is no need to visualize anything, just feel the raw physical sensation. For others, the sensation is more prominent in the chest. You can rest your awareness there, feeling the gentle rise of the chest as the lungs fill with air and the gentle fall as the air is released. For many, the most calming spot is the abdomen. You can place a hand gently on your belly if you like and feel the soft expansion on the inhalation and the gentle contraction on the exhalation. Choose whichever spot feels most natural and easy for you tonight. There is no right or wrong answer. Once you have found your spot, just rest there. Feel one full breath, then feel another. You can silently note breathing in as you breathe in and breathing out as you breathe out. This is not a forceful mantra, but a gentle label, a whisper in the mind to help it stay focused. Notice the entire journey of a single breath. Notice the moment it begins, the way it swells, the brief, still pause at the very peak of the inhalation. Then notice the journey of the exhalation, the feeling of release, of letting go, and the deeper stillness in the pause at the end of the out-breath before the next cycle begins. Just this, in and out, rising and falling. There is nothing else to do. You are simply resting in the rhythm of life itself. Now we come to the most important instruction in this entire practice. Sooner or later, and likely sooner, your mind will wander. This is not a mistake. It is not a sign that you are failing or that you are bad at meditating. It is simply what minds do. The monkey mind will see a thought and swing towards it. It might be a memory, a plan, a sound in the house, a fantasy. You might follow it for seconds or even minutes before you realize you are no longer with your breath. The moment you realize this, the moment you wake up from the dream of thought, is a moment of pure mindfulness. It is a small victory, a moment of awakening. This is the core of the practice. The goal is not to have a mind that never wanders. The goal is to become aware when it has wandered. And what do you do in that moment of awareness? Here, you must be exceptionally kind to yourself. There is no need for judgment, criticism, or frustration. You would not scold a small puppy for wandering off. You would simply and gently call its name and guide it back home. You must treat your own mind with this same gentle and patient authority. When you notice it has wandered, you can make a soft mental note, wandering or thinking, acknowledging what has happened without judgment. Then, with the tenderness of a loving parent, you gently guide your attention back to your chosen spot, back to the simple physical sensation of the breath, back to the anchor. And you begin again, in and out. You may have to do this 5 times, 50 times, or 500 times in a single session. It does not matter. The practice is not in staying on the breath. The practice is the gentle, non-judgmental, returning to the breath over and over again. Each return is a rep in the mental gym, strengthening the muscle of your attention and your compassion. A wise teacher once compared this practice to being a boatman on a vast ocean. The mind is a small boat. The weather of the ocean represents your thoughts and emotions. Sometimes the sea is glassy and calm. Other times a hurricane of anxiety is raging. The unwise boatman tries to control the weather. He shouts at the waves. He tries to push back the storm, and he becomes exhausted and lost. The wise boatman knows he cannot control the ocean. He accepts the weather as it is. But he has an anchor. When the storm comes, he does not panic. He simply and skillfully lowers his anchor to the seabed. The boat is still tossed and turned by the waves of thought and feeling, but it is no longer carried away by the powerful currents of fear and obsession. It is held steady. It is safe. The breath is this anchor. The storms of thought will still come. We do not need to fight them. We simply need to keep dropping our anchor, returning our awareness to the physical reality of the breath. This practice provides stability in the midst of chaos. Anapanasati is not a technique to force sleep. It is a way to find peace with the present moment, whatever it may hold. It is an act of friendship towards your own mind. It is a training in returning over and over to a place of stillness that is always available to you, right here, beneath the surface of the noise. Each time you return to the breath, you are stepping out of the frantic stream of time-bound thoughts and into the spaciousness of the present. This practice, repeated gently, creates a profound sense of stability and calm. From this grounded and anchored place, we can now begin to explore our experience with even greater intimacy. We have anchored the mind, and now we can turn our awareness to the vessel that carries it. We can begin to inhabit our entire body, a vast landscape where the tensions and stories of our lives are stored, and gently invite it, too, to let go. Having found a measure of stability with the anchor of the breath, we can now gently widen the scope of our awareness. We can begin to turn our attention from the mind to the body, our physical home. For most of our waking lives, we treat the body as a vehicle, a tool to carry our brains from one task to the next. We live in our heads, lost in a world of thought, largely disconnected from the rich, complex, and intelligent life of our physical form. Yet the body is not a separate entity, it is the other half of the mind. It is a living landscape that faithfully records the story of our lives, holding on to our joys, our sorrows, and most especially our stress. A worried mind creates a tense body, and a tense body sends constant, subtle signals of alarm back to the mind, creating a vicious cycle of anxiety. The practice of the body scan is a gentle and systematic way to interrupt this cycle. It is a way of coming home to ourselves, of re-inhabiting our bodies with a spirit of kindness and curiosity. The intention here is not to force relaxation. Like trying to force sleep, trying to force relaxation only creates more tension. Instead, the intention is simply to feel, to bring a gentle, non-judgmental awareness to the body, part by part. Relaxation is a natural byproduct of this kind, interested attention. Think of yourself not as a critic trying to fix a problem, but as a gentle explorer or a kindly scientist charting the inner territory of your physical self. There is no need to change your position. Simply continue to lie comfortably, allowing the breath to flow naturally in the background, a soft rhythm accompanying your journey. We will begin at the place furthest from the thinking mind. Bring your attention, as if it were a soft, warm, golden light, all the way down your left leg, past your knee, down your shin, and into your left foot. Settle your awareness in the toes of your left foot. See if you can feel them individually. You may not be able to, and that is perfectly fine. Just bring your awareness to that area. What do you feel? You might notice warmth, coolness, a tingling sensation, the gentle pressure of a blanket, or perhaps you feel very little at all. Numbness, or a lack of sensation, is also a valid experience to be noted. There is no right or wrong way to feel. You are simply noticing what is true in this moment. Now, allow your awareness to expand, to fill the sole of your foot, the heel where it connects with the bed, the top of the foot, and the ankle joint. You are not judging these sensations, simply receiving them. And as you breathe out, imagine a wave of release washing through your entire left foot, allowing it to become heavy and soft. Now, gently shift your attention to your right foot and repeat the process. Bring the warm light of your awareness to the toes, the sole, the heel, the top of the foot, the ankle, simply feeling, simply noticing, with each out-breath inviting it to let go. From your feet, allow your awareness to slowly travel upwards into your lower legs, your shins, and your calf muscles. This is an area where we can hold a lot of tension from walking and standing. On an inhalation, you can imagine the breath traveling all the way down to your calves, bringing fresh oxygen and energy. On the exhalation, feel a sense of letting go, of softening, of releasing any holding. Allow your lower legs to feel heavy, fully supported by the surface beneath them. Now, bring your awareness to your knees, front and back, and then into the large, powerful muscles of your thighs. The thighs work so hard for us all day. At night, they can finally rest. Invite them to release their grip, to let go of any need to do anything at all. Feel the entire length of both your legs, from the hips down to the tips of your toes, feeling heavy, warm, and deeply relaxed. Now, bring your attention to the core of your body, the area of your hips, pelvis, and buttocks. This is a deep bowl where we often store stress and emotion without realizing it. Feel the weight of your body here, the solid points of contact with the bed. Let this area be heavy, grounded, and secure. From here, let your awareness float up into your abdomen. Allow your belly to be soft, rising and falling gently with the rhythm of your breath. So often, we hold our stomachs tight in a state of subtle defense. Give yourself permission to let that defense go. Let the belly be vulnerable and soft. Then, bring your awareness around to your lower back, another common storage place for tension. Breathe into any tightness you may find there. Imagine the out-breath carrying that tension away, creating space and ease. Continue upwards into your chest and upper back. Feel the gentle movement of your ribs as you breathe. You might even become aware of the steady, faithful beating of your own heart within your chest, a rhythm of life that continues without any effort on your part. Feel the weight of your shoulder blades resting against the bed. From the center of your chest, allow your awareness to flow down both arms simultaneously, down through the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms, and into your hands. Bring a detailed awareness to your hands. Notice your palms, the backs of your hands, and each finger one by one. Our hands are our primary tools for interacting with the world, for doing, grasping, and controlling. At night, they too can rest. Feel the sensations in your fingers, perhaps tingling, warmth, or coolness. Let your hands be open and soft. Now, travel back up your arms to your shoulders. We so often say we are carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. As you breathe out, give yourself explicit permission to set that weight down just for tonight. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears, releasing a burden you may not have even known you were carrying. Bring your awareness into your neck and throat, inviting a sense of openness and ease. Finally, we bring our attention to the head. First, to the jaw. This is a crucial and revealing area. Gently bring your awareness to your jaw muscles on both sides of your face. Notice if there is any clenching here. It is truly remarkable how we can go through an entire day or lie here for an hour with the jaw clenched in a state of subtle effort without ever being aware of it. This clenching is the physical manifestation of determination, of stress, of unexpressed frustration. If you notice any tightness here, you don't need to force it open. The simple, gentle light of your awareness is enough. As you notice the clenching, you can invite it to soften. You might allow your lips to part slightly, letting the jaw hang loose. This simple act of noticing and releasing can send a powerful wave of relaxation through your entire nervous system. Now, let that softness spread. Let it soften your lips, your cheeks. Let it soften the hundreds of tiny muscles around your eyes. Let your forehead become smooth and wide, releasing the mask of expression you wear during the day. Let this feeling of release permeate your entire scalp and finally rest at the very top of your head. For a few moments now, expand your awareness to include your entire body, from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head, all at once. Feel the body as a single, unified field of sensation. Feel its weight, its warmth, its aliveness. Feel the whole body breathing, a gentle wave of motion. You have come home. You have reconnected with your physical self, not as an object, but as a living, feeling presence. The body scan is a profound act of self-care. It teaches us that by bringing our kind, interested attention to the places where we hold tension, we allow that tension to dissolve. We are not burning it away with a harsh light, but melting it with the gentle warmth of our own awareness. The body, finally feeling heard, attended to, and safe, can do what it knows how to do best: let go. We have now anchored the mind in the breath, and we have invited the body into a state of deep release. We have addressed the tension in our thoughts and in our muscles. But there is another dimension of our being that calls for healing, especially when we are beset by the chill of anxiety and fear. This is the dimension of the heart. To cultivate a truly deep and resilient peace, we must learn not only to quiet the mind and relax the body, but also to warm the heart. This leads us to the beautiful and transformative practice of metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. Having anchored the mind in the steady rhythm of the breath, and having reconnected with the body through a gentle, accepting awareness, a certain stillness begins to emerge. The frantic energy has a place to rest. The physical tension has been given permission to dissolve. Yet even in this quiet space, we may still feel a subtle, underlying chill. This is the residue of anxiety, the echo of fear, the feeling of a heart that has learned to protect itself by staying guarded, defended, and often critical, especially toward itself. To find a truly deep and resilient peace, we must address this emotional temperature. We must learn not only to quiet the mind and relax the body, but also to warm the heart. This is the purpose of the beautiful and transformative practice known as metta bhavana. In the ancient Pali language, metta means loving kindness, goodwill, or unconditional friendship. Bhavana means to cultivate or to develop. This practice, then, is the systematic cultivation of loving kindness. If mindfulness is the practice of seeing clearly, metta is the practice of holding what we see with boundless care. Anxiety at its core is a state of fear. It is a contraction. The body tightens, the mind narrows its focus onto a perceived threat, and the heart closes down to protect itself. Our inner dialogue becomes harsh, a critical voice that judges us for our feelings, for our inability to sleep, for our very human frailties. Metta is the direct antidote to this state. It is an act of radical expansion. It is a conscious choice to generate a feeling of warmth, friendliness, and unconditional acceptance. You cannot simultaneously feel genuine, warm-hearted kindness and cold, contracted fear. The two are mutually exclusive. By intentionally cultivating the feeling of metta, we are not fighting the fear or the anxiety. We are simply turning on a light in a dark room. The darkness doesn't need to be chased out. It simply dissolves in the presence of the light. Metta changes the very atmosphere of our inner world, from a cold, hostile environment to a warm, friendly, and safe one. The practice of metta bhavana begins in the place that is often the most difficult for us, but also the most essential, with ourselves. We are so often taught that focusing on ourselves is selfish, but in this context, it is a vital necessity. You cannot pour water from an empty cup. You cannot offer genuine friendship to others if you are at war with yourself. So, the cultivation of loving kindness must begin at home, in your own heart. Lying there comfortably, with the body relaxed and the mind somewhat settled, gently bring your awareness to the area of your physical heart. You can even place a hand there if it helps to bring your focus. Now, try to evoke a feeling of warmth and tenderness. It can help to bring to mind someone or something for whom you feel an easy, uncomplicated love, perhaps a beloved pet, a small child, a cherished mentor, or a beautiful memory of a time you felt deeply cared for. You are not trying to manufacture an intense emotion, but simply to touch into the feeling of kindness, however subtle it may be. Once you have a spark of this warm feeling, you can begin to use a set of traditional phrases to direct this energy toward yourself. These phrases are not magic spells. They are tools, like the rudder of a ship, that help steer your intention. Repeat them silently, slowly, allowing the feeling behind the words to resonate in your heart. The traditional phrases can be adapted, but often they are, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. Let's look at each one. May I be safe is a wish for protection from both outer harm and, more importantly, from the harm of your own harsh judgments and fears. May I be happy is not a wish for fleeting pleasure, but for a deep, authentic, and lasting well-being. May I be healthy is a wish for the well-being of this body, a recognition of it as a precious gift. And may I live with ease is a wish for peace and grace amidst the unavoidable challenges of life. As you repeat these phrases, it is very important to be patient with yourself. For many of us, this first stage is the hardest. The phrases might feel awkward, mechanical, or even untrue. Feelings of unworthiness may arise, with the inner critic whispering, "You don't deserve this." If this happens, it is part of the practice. Simply acknowledge these difficult feelings with the same mindfulness you have been cultivating. There is that old story of not being good enough. See it as a cloud passing in the sky of your awareness, and then, as gently as you can, return to the phrases. Even if they feel hollow, continue to repeat them, like a soft, gentle rain falling on hard, dry ground. Over time, the ground will soften. When you feel ready, you can begin to expand the circle of loving kindness. The second stage is to bring to mind a dear friend or a benefactor, someone for whom you feel deep gratitude and affection. Picture them clearly in your mind's eye. See them happy and well. And now, direct the phrases of metta toward them, changing the words slightly. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the natural warmth and friendship in your heart flow out to this person. Allow yourself to genuinely wish for their well-being. This stage often helps the feeling of metta to flow more freely and strongly. The third stage is to bring to mind a neutral person. This might be someone you see regularly, but don't have strong feelings about: a cashier at the grocery store, a neighbor you nod to, a coworker in another department. By including this person in your practice, you begin to stretch the heart beyond its usual confines of personal preference. You are training the heart to be more universal in its goodwill. Picture this person, and again offer them the same wishes. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. You are acknowledging their basic humanity, their own desire to be happy and free from suffering, just like you. The fourth stage is the most challenging, and it should be approached with wisdom and care. If you feel ready, you can bring to mind a difficult person, someone with whom you have a conflict or feel resentment. It is important to state that the purpose here is not to condone their harmful actions or to force a superficial reconciliation. The purpose of this stage is to free yourself. Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only harms you, tying you to the past and filling your heart with bitterness. By offering even a flicker of metta toward this person, you are beginning to loosen the chains of your own resentment. You can offer the phrases, may you be safe, may you find your own peace. You are wishing for them to be free from the very suffering that causes them to act in harmful ways. If this feels too difficult, simply skip this stage. It is an advanced practice in self-liberation. Finally, we arrive at the most expansive stage. Let go of any specific individual and allow the feeling of loving kindness to become boundless. Imagine it radiating out from your heart in all directions, like ripples on a pond or like light from a lamp. A beautiful analogy for this is the sun. The sun shines its light and warmth on everything and everyone without discrimination. It shines on the beautiful rose and the sharp thorn, on the palace and the prison, on the people we love and the people we find difficult. It does not choose. In this final stage, you cultivate a heart that is like the sun. Let your metta radiate forward, backward, to the left and to the right. Let it radiate up and down. Let it extend to all beings, near and far, seen and unseen, human and non-human. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. In this state, the tight boundaries of self and other begin to dissolve, replaced by a profound sense of interconnection and shared being. The feeling of isolation, which is so often the fuel for anxiety, fades away. Metta Bhavana is a profound healing practice for the heart. It systematically replaces the cold contraction of fear with the gentle warmth of friendship. It changes the very chemistry of our inner world, making it a safer, kinder place to inhabit. We have now worked with three essential aspects of our being. We have anchored the restless mind in the breath. We have softened the tense body through mindful awareness. And we have warmed the anxious heart with loving kindness. From this stable, open-hearted, and embodied presence, we are now prepared to look even more deeply into the nature of the mind itself. We are ready to move beyond observing the content of our thoughts to observing the very process of thinking. We are ready to discover the silent, spacious awareness that lies behind it all the sky that holds the clouds. This is the practice of noticing the space between our thoughts. From this place of anchored mind, softened body, and warmed heart, a new possibility for insight emerges. A profound stillness begins to make itself known. We have, until this point, been working primarily with the content of our experience, paying attention to the sensation of the breath, the feelings in the body, the generation of kindness in the heart. Now, we can turn our attention to the very context in which all this experience happens. We are ready to investigate the nature of awareness itself, the silent, screen-like consciousness upon which our entire inner world is projected. This is a shift from a practice of doing to a practice of pure, effortless seeing. At the heart of this investigation lies one of the most liberating discoveries on the spiritual path. It is a truth so simple, yet so radical, that it can change everything. The discovery is this: you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not the stories your mind tells you. You are the silent, spacious awareness that witnesses all of these things as they arise and pass away. We are so deeply conditioned to believe the opposite. From a young age, we learn to fuse our identity with the contents of our mind. If a thought of sadness appears, we conclude, "I am sad." If a feeling of anxiety arises, we say, "I am an anxious person." If a thought of failure passes through, we believe, "I am a failure." We become completely identified with the fleeting weather patterns of our inner world. This practice is about undoing that fusion. It is about learning to shift our identity from the passing phenomena to the steady, background awareness that perceives them. The practice is to move from saying, "I am sad," to being able to notice, awareness is here, and it is noticing a feeling of sadness. This small shift in language reflects a monumental shift in perspective. A beautiful and timeless metaphor for this understanding is that of the sky and the clouds. Imagine that your true nature, this boundless awareness, is like the vast, open blue sky. It is limitless, ever-present, and fundamentally peaceful. Your thoughts, emotions, memories, and physical sensations are like the clouds that drift through the sky. Some clouds are white, light, and fluffy. These are our pleasant thoughts and happy feelings. Other clouds are dark, heavy, and stormy, full of thunder and lightning. These are our painful thoughts, our anxieties, and our fears. As human beings, we are conditioned to believe that we are the clouds. When a happy cloud comes, we cling to it, trying to make it stay. When a dark storm cloud appears, we panic, believing we are the storm and that we will be destroyed by it. The practice of mindfulness at this deeper level is to simply remember over and over again that we are not the clouds, we are the sky. Consider the qualities of the sky. The sky is not harmed by even the most violent storm. The thunder does not scar it. The lightning does not burn it. The sky simply allows the storm to be there, to rage, and to eventually pass, knowing that its own vast blue nature remains untouched, unchanged. In the same way, our core awareness is not harmed by a painful thought or a difficult emotion. It is the space that allows these experiences to happen, but it is not defined by them. The sky is always vaster than any cloud. Our awareness is always greater than any single thought, no matter how powerful or convincing that thought may seem. When we are lost in anxiety in the middle of the night, we have forgotten that we are the sky. We believe we are a small, dark storm cloud, and we feel trapped and overwhelmed. The path to freedom lies in remembering our own sky-like nature. How do we do this in a practical sense? The practice is to become the watcher. Instead of anchoring your attention solely on the breath, you can now allow the thoughts themselves to become the object of your meditation, but you do not engage with them. You simply sit back, metaphorically speaking, and watch them drift by. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river, watching leaves float past, or sitting by a roadside, watching cars go by. Your thoughts are the leaves. Your thoughts are the cars. You do not jump into the river to grab a leaf. You do not run out into the street to chase a car. You simply watch. You notice a thought appear, you see it exist for a moment, and you watch it dissolve. To help with this process of non-engagement, a technique known as labeling can be incredibly helpful. It is a way of creating just enough distance to keep from getting hooked. As a thought arises in your awareness, you give it a very gentle, soft, one-word mental label. If you find yourself thinking about your to-do list for tomorrow, you can silently whisper, "planning." If a worry about your health appears, you can note, "worrying." If a memory from your childhood surfaces, "remembering." If a thought about how you're failing at this practice arises, you can label it, "judging." The tone of the label is crucial. It is not a harsh stamp of disapproval. It is a soft, neutral, scientific observation. You are simply categorizing the data stream of your mind. This simple act reinforces the truth that you are the scientist observing the data, not the data itself. As you sit and watch in this way, you may begin to notice something extraordinary. You may notice that the stream of thoughts is not continuous. There are gaps. There are brief moments of silence between one thought dissolving and the next one arising. At first, these gaps might seem infinitesimally small, but they are profoundly important. This space, this silence between thoughts, is the sky. It is a direct experience of pure, thought-free awareness. This is your true home. The practice then becomes not just watching the clouds, but learning to rest in the moments of clear sky between them. The more you notice and rest in this space, the more it tends to expand. The mind naturally becomes quieter. The freedom that comes from this practice is immeasurable. Our minds are, by their nature, magnificent storytellers. They weave elaborate narratives about who we are, what our past means, and what our future holds. The sleepless mind is a particularly dramatic storyteller, specializing in horror stories and catastrophic thrillers. It tells us, you will never get to sleep. Tomorrow will be a ruin. You cannot cope. We have been conditioned to treat the mind's voice as an unquestionable authority, as a prophet delivering undeniable truths. This practice reveals the mind for what it is, an organ that produces thoughts, just as the stomach produces digestive juices. Not all of its productions are helpful or true. We can learn to listen to its stories with a kind of detached amusement. When the mind offers up a story of impending doom, we can learn to see it for what it is. We can label it catastrophizing or storytelling. We can even say to our mind, "Thank you for sharing," and gently return to the feeling of the breath or the quiet space of awareness. This is the power of disidentification. The thoughts lose their magnetic pull. They lose their power to command your feelings and dictate your reality. You are no longer a prisoner in the cell of your own thinking. You realize that you are the spacious freedom in which the thoughts are allowed to come and go. The peace you discover is not a fragile peace that depends on having good thoughts or no thoughts at all. It is an unshakable peace, the peace of the sky itself, which remains serene regardless of the weather. We have now journeyed deep into the inner world. We began by anchoring the restless mind in the breath. We learned to soften the tense body with mindful awareness. We practiced warming the anxious heart with loving kindness. And now we have learned to rest as the sky-like awareness that witnesses all of it. We have moved from identifying with the fleeting clouds to knowing ourselves as the vast, unchanging sky. This provides us with a complete and profound toolkit for navigating our inner landscape and finding peace. But having a set of tools and knowing how to use them with wisdom and skill are two different things. How much effort should we apply in these practices? Is it possible to try too hard and create more stress? How do we find a path that is balanced, gentle, and truly effective? This brings us to a crucial principle of the Buddhist path, a concept known as right effort, the wise and compassionate middle way of practice. We have now assembled a rich and profound toolkit for inner healing. We have the anchor of the breath to steady the mind, the practice of the body scan to soften physical tension, the warmth of loving kindness to soothe the heart, and the wisdom of resting as the sky-like awareness that is our true nature. But a question naturally and wisely arises. With what kind of energy should we use these tools? How should we approach this path? If we are too forceful, we create more tension. If we are too passive, we make no progress. This crucial question leads us to one of the central principles of the Buddhist path, a guiding star known as the middle way. The application of this middle way to our practice, to the very energy we bring to it, is called right effort. The term right effort, or sama vayama in Pali, points to a way of engaging that skillfully avoids two common and counterproductive extremes. The first extreme is that of laxity or indolence. This is the path of too little effort. It is the voice in the mind that says, "This is too difficult," or "I'm too tired tonight," or "This will never work for me." It is a half-hearted, passive approach that gives up at the first sign of difficulty. It is like a gardener who, wanting a beautiful garden, rarely bothers to water the seeds or pull the weeds. With this kind of energy, the seeds of peace and clarity can never sprout. The garden of the mind remains overgrown with the weeds of habitual thought. The second extreme is, for many of us in the modern world, a far more seductive trap. It is the extreme of striving, of aggressive, forceful effort. This is the path of too much effort. It is the application of our culture's relentless drive for achievement to the inner world. It is the type A personality brought to the meditation cushion. This energy is marked by impatience, a desperate desire for results, and a harsh, critical attitude toward oneself. The mind says, "Why isn't this working? Am I calm yet? Why am I still having thoughts? I must try harder." When we apply this kind of forceful, grasping energy to the delicate art of letting go, we create the very tension we are hoping to release. It is like trying to see your reflection in a pond by thrashing the water. The more you thrash, the more obscured your reflection becomes. It is the gardener who, impatient for growth, pulls on the young seedlings to try and make them grow faster, only to uproot and kill them. This striving energy is a subtle form of violence against ourselves, and it is the enemy of the peace we seek. The Buddha, with his characteristic genius for simple, powerful metaphors, illustrated this principle perfectly in the story of a monk named Sona. Sona had been a musician before joining the monastic order, and he brought a musician's intensity to his practice. He practiced walking meditation with such ferocious, unrelenting effort that the soles of his feet became cracked and bloodied. He was exhausted, discouraged, and on the verge of giving up, believing the path was not for him. The Buddha, knowing Sona's state of mind, went to him and asked, "Sona, before you became a monk, were you not skilled at playing the lute?" Sona replied that he was. The Buddha then asked, "Tell me, Sona, what happens if the strings of your lute are tuned too tightly?" Sona answered, "Master, if the strings are too tight, they will screech or snap, and the lute will produce no beautiful sound." The Buddha nodded. "And what happens if the strings of your lute are tuned too loosely?" Sona replied, "Master, if the strings are too loose, they will be slack and will not make a sound at all." The Buddha then asked the crucial question, "But when the strings are tuned not too tightly and not too loosely, but are adjusted just right, what then?" Sona's face lit up. "Then, Master," he said, "the lute produces a beautiful, enchanting, and resonant melody." The Buddha smiled gently. "So it is, Sona," he said, "with the energy one applies to this path. Energy that is stretched too tight leads to restlessness and agitation. Energy that is too lax leads to laziness and inaction. Therefore, Sona, you must tune the instrument of your practice. Cultivate an energy that is balanced, consistent, and sustained. Find the middle way, and the beautiful music of peace will arise on its own." This is right effort. It is the art of tuning the lute. It is a gentle, patient, and persistent application of our tools. To make this more concrete, we can understand right effort as having four aspects. First, there is the effort to prevent unwholesome states, like anger, greed, or self-criticism, from arising. This is the work of a gentle gatekeeper. It's the wisdom of choosing not to engage in gossip that you know will stir up negativity, or choosing to put your phone away an hour before bed because you know that scrolling through social media will agitate your mind. You wisely choose not to plant the seeds of unrest. Second, there is the effort to overcome unwholesome states that have already arisen. This is the work of a kind physician. When anxiety or frustration is already present in the mind, we do not try to violently suppress it. Instead, we skillfully apply the antidotes we have learned. We meet the feeling with acceptance. We breathe with it. We offer it the warmth of loving kindness. We see it as a dark cloud, knowing we are the sky. We gently and skillfully release its grip. Third, there is the effort to cultivate wholesome states like kindness, generosity, and calm that have not yet arisen. This is the work of the patient gardener. It is the proactive choice to plant the seeds of peace. It is the gentle discipline of setting aside time for our practice, even on days when we don't necessarily feel like it. It is the conscious choice to reflect on gratitude or to actively generate feelings of metta, watering the seeds we wish to see grow. And fourth, there is the effort to maintain the wholesome states that are already present. This is the work of the careful steward. When a moment of genuine peace, clarity, or joy arises during our practice or our day, we learn to cherish it without clinging to it. We don't grasp at it in fear of it leaving, as that would be striving. Instead, we sustain it with our gentle attention, allowing it to nourish us and to flourish in its own time. When we apply this balanced understanding of effort to our struggle with sleep, it is transformative. The path of lax effort is to surrender to the identity of being a bad sleeper, doing nothing to change the conditions, and falling into habits that we know make things worse. The path of striving effort is to turn sleep into a performance metric, to follow a rigid regimen with anxiety, and to scold ourselves for failure, creating immense pressure. Right effort is the middle way. It is the gentle commitment to create the conditions for rest without being attached to the results. It is the kindness to engage in a calming pre-sleep ritual. It is the compassion to return our attention to the breath for the 100th time without a word of self-criticism. It is the wisdom to understand that sleep, like the beautiful music from the lute, arises not from force, but from balance. The effort is in the tuning, not in the demanding of a song. It is an energy infused with patience, wisdom, and above all, kindness. The practice becomes not a race to a finish line called sleep, but a continuous, gentle journey of self-discovery and self-compassion. This balanced and compassionate effort is not something we apply only during our formal time of practice. It begins to permeate our entire life. It shapes how we work, how we interact with others, and crucially, how we talk to ourselves. And one of the most powerful arenas where this skillful energy can manifest is in the domain of our speech, both the words we speak out loud and the constant, silent monologue that runs within our own minds. This leads us to the next vital element on our path, the practice of right speech. We have now assembled a rich and profound toolkit for inner healing. We have the anchor of the breath to steady the mind, the practice of the body scan to soften physical tension, the warmth of loving kindness to soothe the heart, and the wisdom of resting as the sky-like awareness that is our true nature. But a question naturally and wisely arises. With what kind of energy should we use these tools? How should we approach this path? If we are too forceful, we create more tension. If we are too passive, we make no progress. This crucial question leads us to one of the central principles of the Buddhist path, a guiding star known as the middle way. The application of this middle way to our practice, to the very energy we bring to it, is called right effort. The term right effort, or samavayama in Pali, points to a way of engaging that skillfully avoids two common and counterproductive extremes. The first extreme is that of laxity or indolence. This is the path of too little effort. It is the voice in the mind that says, "This is too difficult," or "I'm too tired tonight," or "This will never work for me." It is a half-hearted, passive approach that gives up at the first sign of difficulty. It is like a gardener who, wanting a beautiful garden, rarely bothers to water the seeds or pull the weeds. With this kind of energy, the seeds of peace and clarity can never sprout. The garden of the mind remains overgrown with the weeds of habitual thought. The second extreme is, for many of us in the modern world, a far more seductive trap. It is the extreme of striving, of aggressive, forceful effort. This is the path of too much effort. It is the application of our culture's relentless drive for achievement to the inner world. It is the type A personality brought to the meditation cushion. This energy is marked by impatience, a desperate desire for results, and a harsh, critical attitude toward oneself. The mind says, "Why isn't this working? Am I calm yet? Why am I still having thoughts? I must try harder." When we apply this kind of forceful, grasping energy to the delicate art of letting go, we create the very tension we are hoping to release. It is like trying to see your reflection in a pond by thrashing the water. The more you thrash, the more obscured your reflection becomes. It is the gardener who, impatient for growth, pulls on the young seedlings to try and make them grow faster, only to uproot and kill them. This striving energy is a subtle form of violence against ourselves, and it is the enemy of the peace we seek. The Buddha, with his characteristic genius for simple, powerful metaphors, illustrated this principle perfectly in the story of a monk named Sona. Sona had been a musician before joining the monastic order, and he brought a musician's intensity to his practice. He practiced walking meditation with such ferocious, unrelenting effort that the soles of his feet became cracked and bloody. He was exhausted, discouraged, and on the verge of giving up, believing the path was not for him. The Buddha, knowing Sona's state of mind, went to him and asked, "Sona, before you became a monk, were you not skilled at playing the lute?" Sona replied that he was. The Buddha then asked, "Tell me, Sona, what happens if the strings of your lute are tuned too tightly?" Sona answered, "Master, if the strings are too tight, they will screech or snap, and the lute will produce no beautiful sound." The Buddha nodded. "And what happens if the strings of your lute are tuned too loosely?" Sona replied, "Master, if the strings are too loose, they will be slack and will not make a sound at all." The Buddha then asked the crucial question, "But when the strings are tuned not too tightly and not too loosely, but are adjusted just right, what then?" Sona's face lit up. "Then, Master," he said, "the lute produces a beautiful, enchanting, and resonant melody." The Buddha smiled gently. "So it is, Sona," he said, "with the energy one applies to this path. Energy that is stretched too tight leads to restlessness and agitation. Energy that is too lax leads to laziness and inaction. Therefore, Sona, you must tune the instrument of your practice. Cultivate an energy that is balanced, consistent, and sustained. Find the middle way, and the beautiful music of peace will arise on its own. This is right effort. It is the art of tuning the lute. It is a gentle, patient, and persistent application of our tools. To make this more concrete, we can understand right effort as having four aspects. First, there is the effort to prevent unwholesome states, like anger, greed, or self-criticism, from arising. This is the work of a gentle gatekeeper. It's the wisdom of choosing not to engage in gossip that you know will stir up negativity, or choosing to put your phone away an hour before bed because you know that scrolling through social media will agitate your mind. You wisely choose not to plant the seeds of unrest. Second, there is the effort to overcome unwholesome states that have already arisen. This is the work of a kind physician. When anxiety or frustration is already present in the mind, we do not try to violently suppress it. Instead, we skillfully apply the antidotes we have learned. We meet the feeling with acceptance. We breathe with it. We offer it the warmth of loving kindness. We see it as a dark cloud, knowing we are the sky. We gently and skillfully release its grip. Third, there is the effort to cultivate wholesome states like kindness, generosity, and calm that have not yet arisen. This is the work of the patient gardener. It is the proactive choice to plant the seeds of peace. It is the gentle discipline of setting aside time for our practice, even on days when we don't necessarily feel like it. It is the conscious choice to reflect on gratitude or to actively generate feelings of metta, watering the seeds we wish to see grow. And fourth, there is the effort to maintain the wholesome states that are already present. This is the work of the careful steward. When a moment of genuine peace, clarity, or joy arises during our practice or our day, we learn to cherish it without clinging to it. We don't grasp at it in fear of it leaving, as that would be striving. Instead, we sustain it with our gentle attention, allowing it to nourish us and to flourish in its own time. When we apply this balanced understanding of effort to our struggle with sleep, it is transformative. The path of lax effort is to surrender to the identity of being a bad sleeper, doing nothing to change the conditions, and falling into habits that we know make things worse. The path of striving effort is to turn sleep into a performance metric, to follow a rigid regimen with anxiety, and to scold ourselves for failure, creating immense pressure. Right effort is the middle way. It is the gentle commitment to create the conditions for rest without being attached to the results. It is the kindness to engage in a calming pre-sleep ritual. It is the compassion to return our attention to the breath for the 100th time without a word of self-criticism. It is the wisdom to understand that sleep, like the beautiful music from the lute, arises not from force, but from balance. The effort is in the tuning, not in the demanding of a song. It is an energy infused with patience, wisdom, and above all, kindness. The practice becomes not a race to a finish line called sleep, but a continuous, gentle journey of self-discovery and self-compassion. This balanced and compassionate effort is not something we apply only during our formal time of practice. It begins to permeate our entire life. It shapes how we work, how we interact with others, and crucially, how we talk to ourselves. And one of the most powerful arenas where this skillful energy can manifest is in the domain of our speech, both the words we speak out loud and the constant, silent monologue that runs within our own minds. This leads us to the next vital element on our path, the practice of right speech. We have journeyed through the inner landscapes of the mind, the heart, and the breath. We have learned to tune the instrument of our practice with the gentle touch of right effort. But the path of awakening is not merely an internal, abstract pursuit. It is an embodied path. The peace we cultivate within must eventually find expression in our actions, and the environment we create for ourselves can, in turn, profoundly support or sabotage our inner work. Our outer world is a mirror of our inner world, and our inner world is deeply influenced by our outer surroundings. This brings us to the vital practice of right action, which, in our context, is the art of skillfully creating a physical and behavioral sanctuary for sleep. The traditional understanding of right action, or samakamanta, involves refraining from actions that cause harm, such as killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But we can understand this principle more broadly as a commitment to act in ways that reduce suffering and cultivate well-being for ourselves and for others. When we look through this lens, we can see that creating a chaotic, overstimulating, and stressful bedroom environment is a subtle form of harming ourselves. It works directly against our deepest need for rest and renewal. Right action, therefore, is the conscious choice to shape our environment and our habits in a way that is kind, supportive, and conducive to peace. It is the practice of transforming our bedroom from a mere room where we happen to sleep into a true sanctuary. A sanctuary is a sacred space. It is a place set apart, a place of refuge, peace, and restoration. Think of a quiet chapel, a serene temple, or a beautiful, secluded garden. These places have a palpable feeling of calm because they are treated with intention and respect. They are dedicated to a single, peaceful purpose. We can bring this same quality of intention to the space where we spend a third of our lives. This is not about expensive furniture or lavish decorations. A sanctuary is created not with money, but with mindfulness. By consciously deciding that this room is dedicated to rest, intimacy, and healing, we send a powerful message to the deeper parts of our psyche. We are telling our nervous system, this space is safe. In this space, you can let go. The battles of the day end at this doorway. This transformation from a room to a sanctuary is achieved through a series of specific, mindful actions. The first and perhaps most critical action in our modern age is to manage light. Our bodies have an ancient internal clock that is exquisitely sensitive to light. For millennia, the setting of the sun signaled to our brains that it was time to produce melatonin, the hormone of sleep, and prepare the body for rest. The bright, blue spectrum light that emanates from our phones, tablets, and computer screens is a powerful imposter of daylight. When we stare into these screens late at night, we are sending a confusing and agitating signal to our brain. It's the middle of the day. Stay alert. Be ready. Right action here is the creation of a digital sunset. At least 1 hour before your intended bedtime, make a conscious choice to turn off these devices. Put your phone to charge across the room, not on your nightstand where it can tempt you. Let the evening light in your room be warm and dim. This simple action aligns your environment with your biology and is a profound act of self-care. Second, consider the primal nature of your body. We are creatures who are biologically wired to sleep in safe, cave-like environments, places that are cool, dark, and quiet. We can honor this ancient need through our actions. Use blackout curtains or an eye mask to make the room as dark as possible. Keep the temperature on the cooler side, as a slight drop in body temperature signals the onset of sleep. If your environment is noisy, consider earplugs or a white noise machine to create a consistent, soothing soundscape, masking any sudden noises that might startle you awake. These are not just sleep tips. They are acts of respect for the deep instinctual wisdom of your own body. Third, we must practice right action regarding the use of the bed itself. The bed must become a sacred space, reserved for only two things: sleep and intimacy. In our modern lives, the bed has often become a multi-purpose activity center. We work on our laptops in bed, we eat in bed, we have stressful conversations in bed, we scroll through upsetting news in bed. When we do this, our brain, which learns through association, begins to connect the physical space of the bed with states of alertness, stress, productivity, and anxiety. We then lie down and wonder why our mind won't shut off. We have trained it to be active there. The practice of right action is to break this association. Make a firm commitment to take all other activities out of the bed and out of the bedroom if possible. When your head hits the pillow, it should be the final, unambiguous signal to your entire being that the only task at hand is to surrender to rest. Finally, right action involves the creation of a conscious pre-sleep ritual. A ritual is not just a routine. A routine can be done mindlessly. A ritual is a series of intentional actions that mark a transition from one state to another. It is a way of gracefully closing the door on the day and opening the door to the night. Your ritual can be simple. It might involve brewing a warm cup of caffeine-free herbal tea and sipping it mindfully. It might be 15 minutes of gentle stretching, releasing the physical tensions of the day. It could be reading a few pages of a book that is calming or inspiring, not a heart-pounding thriller. It could be listening to quiet, ambient music. It could be writing down 3 things you are grateful for in a journal, a practice that shifts the mind from a state of lack to a state of appreciation. The specific actions are less important than the quality of attention you bring to them. By performing the same calming ritual each night, you create a powerful Pavlovian response in your body and mind. This ritual becomes a clear and gentle announcement. The day, with all its striving and doing, is now complete. It is time to let go. A Zen master was once asked by a novice why he spent so much time each morning meticulously sweeping the temple garden with a simple straw broom. "The garden is already clean, master," the novice pointed out. The master continued his slow, deliberate sweeping and replied without looking up, "I am not just sweeping the garden, I am sweeping my mind." This story holds the key to right action. When we mindfully prepare our sleep sanctuary, we are not just tidying a room. When we dim the lights, we are consciously dimming the noise and chaos in our minds. When we smooth the sheets and fluff the pillows, we are smoothing the worried creases in our consciousness. When we put away the clutter of the day, we are creating clear, open space within ourselves. Each action becomes a form of meditation, a physical expression of our deep intention to care for our own well-being. The practice of right action teaches us that our inner and outer worlds are inseparable. While the ultimate source of peace is within, creating an external environment that reflects and supports that peace is an act of profound wisdom and compassion. By transforming your bedroom into a sanctuary, you are creating a beautiful, supportive container for your practice and for your rest. You are making it profoundly easier to come home to the sanctuary that has been waiting for you all along the quiet, spacious, and peaceful nature of your own mind. We have now established a comprehensive system, a clear intention, ways to work with the mind, body, and heart, and a set of skillful actions to create a supportive environment. And yet, even with the best of systems, old habits are strong and obstacles will inevitably arise. The Buddha, like a master physician, not only gave us the prescription for health, but also clearly identified the common ailments that can interfere with the cure. He named these specific mental obstacles the 5 hindrances. By learning to recognize and name these unwelcome visitors when they appear, we can rob them of their power to disrupt our peace. We have mindfully constructed our outer sanctuary, aligning our physical space with our deep intention for rest. We have our inner toolkit, the anchor of the breath, the softness of the body scan, the warmth of loving, kindness, and the wisdom of the observing mind. We have committed to a gentle, balanced effort. And yet, as we settle into our practice, we will inevitably find that uninvited guests still appear at the door of our consciousness. These are not personal failings, but universal patterns of the mind, ancient habits that seek to pull us back into turmoil. The Buddha, with his profound understanding of human psychology, identified and categorized these common obstacles. He called them the 5 hindrances, or the nirvana. To know them is to disarm them. Like a wise general who studies his 5 main adversaries, if we can learn their names, recognize their tactics, and understand their nature, we can skillfully prevent them from overrunning the quiet sanctuary of our mind. The first hindrance is sensory desire, kamachanda. This is the mind's restless craving for pleasant experiences through the 5 senses. When we are trying to sleep, this doesn't just mean overt physical desires. It is the mind that escapes the simplicity of the present moment by projecting itself into a pleasurable fantasy. It might be the replaying of a delicious meal you once had, a detailed daydream about a future vacation, or a longing for a past moment of happiness. It can even be the intense and obsessive desire for the sensation of sleep itself, a craving so strong that it creates the very tension that prevents rest. The mind becomes a movie projector, showing an endless series of appealing films, pulling your attention away from the quiet, simple reality of your breath and body. The antidote to sensory desire is to gently acknowledge it without judgment. The mind is desiring, and then to patiently guide the attention back to the present moment, to the simple, non-dramatic feeling of the breath in your nostrils or the rising and falling of your abdomen. We can also reflect on the fleeting nature of pleasure. Like a rainbow, it is beautiful, but it never lasts, and chasing it is a recipe for endless dissatisfaction. The second hindrance is ill will or aversion, vyapada. This is the energy of resistance, anger, hatred, resentment, and frustration. It is a powerful source of agitation, especially at night. It is the anger you feel at the noisy party down the street, the simmering resentment toward a coworker who slighted you, the irritation with a snoring partner. Most potently, it is often directed at ourselves. It is the harsh, critical voice that says, "Why can't you just sleep? You are so useless." This inner critic is a powerful generator of stress hormones, flooding our system with the energy of conflict. The primary antidote for ill will is the practice of metta, or loving kindness, which we have already explored. When you notice the heat of anger or frustration rising, the practice is to consciously introduce the warmth of compassion. You can offer phrases of metta to the person who is the object of your anger, wishing them peace, not to excuse their behavior, but to free yourself from the poison of your own resentment. Even more importantly, you can direct the metta to yourself. May I be at peace. May I be free from this suffering. You meet the inner fire not with more fire, but with the cooling waters of compassion. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor, thinamitta. This is a heavy, dull, and foggy state of mind. It is not the same as healthy physical tiredness. It is a mental lethargy, a murky state of consciousness where awareness becomes clouded and weak. It can feel like a thick, heavy blanket has been draped over your mind, making it difficult to maintain any clear focus on your practice. The mind sinks into a kind of dreary stupor, lacking the energy or motivation to be present. While it may seem close to sleep, it is a state without clarity or peace, and it can leave you feeling groggy and unrested. The antidote here is to gently rouse the energy of the mind. This may seem counterintuitive when trying to sleep, but it means bringing a brighter, more precise quality of attention to your practice for a few moments. You might focus more intently on the very specific sensation of the cool air at the tip of your nostrils. You could do a quick body scan with a bit more speed to re-engage with the life in your body. If the dullness is very strong, the skillful action might even be to get out of bed for 5 minutes, do a few gentle stretches in a dimly lit room, and then return to bed with a refreshed sense of presence. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry. Udaka kukuka. This is the monkey mind at its most active. It has two parts. Udaka is the restlessness, the jittery, scattered energy of a mind that cannot settle down. It flits from one topic to another without end. Kukucha is the specific flavor of worry, regret, and remorse. This is the mind that is stuck in a loop, endlessly replaying a conversation from the day. I should have said this. Why did I say that? Or anxiously pre-playing a future event. What if I fail? What if it goes wrong? This hindrance fills the body with a nervous, buzzing energy that makes rest impossible. It is the embodiment of a mind trapped in the past or the future. The most direct antidote is the practice of anchoring. We must patiently and persistently return our attention to the physical, present moment reality of the breath, anapanasati. The grounding nature of the body scan is also deeply helpful, pulling the scattered energy out of the head and into the heavy, stable reality of the body. We acknowledge the worry. Worrying is here, but we refuse to get lost in its storyline. The fifth and final hindrance is doubt, vichikicha. This is a skeptical, indecisive, and wavering state of mind. It is the inner voice of the saboteur that whispers, "Is this practice really working? Am I doing it right? Maybe this is all a waste of time. Perhaps there's a better, faster method." This hindrance is particularly corrosive because it undermines our resolve and drains our energy for the practice. It creates an inner debate that keeps us stuck in our heads, unable to commit to the simple act of being present. Doubt ensures that we never stay with one practice long enough for it to bear fruit. The antidote to doubt is to cultivate a sense of wise trust. This is not blind faith, but a confidence born of understanding. We can gently recall our intention, remembering why we embarked on this path in the first place. We can put the doubting thoughts aside just for a moment and commit to the practice with a spirit of gentle experimentation. We can say to ourselves, "I don't know if this will work, but let me just stay with the feeling of my breath for 5 more breaths and see what happens." We gently let go of the need for certainty and simply return to the practice. The great power of this teaching lies in the act of naming. When one of these states of mind is present and we are lost in it, it feels like me. I am angry. I am worried. I am lazy. The moment we can recognize and silently name it, this is ill will. This is restlessness. I see you, doubt. We create a space. The hindrance is no longer our identity. It is a recognized visitor, a known adversary. In that space of recognition, we are no longer its victim. We are the wise general who sees the enemy's tactic and can now choose a skillful response. The hindrance loses its unconscious power over us. The practice becomes less about getting rid of these visitors and more about learning not to serve them tea and invite them to stay. As we become more familiar with these 5 primary disruptors of our peace, we may start to notice a common thread running through many of them. The desire for things to be different, the worry about what's to come, the regret about what has passed. These are all expressions of a mind that is fundamentally uncomfortable with the fluid, transient, and uncontrollable nature of life. Our minds desperately want to grasp onto something solid, permanent, and predictable. But what if the very nature of reality is to be in constant flux? To find a peace that is truly deep and unshakable, we must learn to make peace with this fundamental truth. This leads us to the profound and liberating wisdom of impermanence. We have now learned to identify the 5 primary hindrances, the uninvited guests of desire, ill will, sloth, restlessness, and doubt that disturb the sanctuary of our minds. As we become more adept at recognizing them, we may begin to see a common thread that runs through their very fabric. The desire for a pleasant future, the worry about that future, the regret over the past, the aversion to the present momental of these are expressions of a deep and fundamental protest. We are protesting against the raw, undeniable fact that we are not in control and that life is in a constant state of flux. Our minds desperately want to find solid ground, to grasp onto something permanent and predictable. to build a fortress of certainty in a world that is inherently fluid. The peace we seek, however, is not found by winning this protest. It is found by understanding its futility. This brings us to one of the most profound and liberating teachings of the Buddha, the wisdom of anicca, or impermanence. Anicca is a word from the ancient Pali language that means transience, change, and inconstancy. It is the universal law that states that everything that comes into being will, without exception, pass away. Nothing is static. Everything is a process. The great mountains are slowly but surely eroding into dust. The mighty river we see today is not the same river we saw yesterday. Its waters are in constant motion. The seasons cycle endlessly from birth to growth, to decay, to death, and back to birth again. Even our own bodies are a testament to anicca. Scientists tell us that nearly every cell in our body is replaced over a period of years. We are not a fixed entity, but a flowing river of biological processes. This is not a morbid or depressing philosophy. It is a simple, observable, and radical truth. And understanding it is a key to unlocking a profound sense of peace. Our suffering arises not from the fact of change itself, but from our resistance to it. We try to build a permanent home on the banks of a flowing river, and then we are filled with anxiety trying to stop the water from rising, and filled with grief when our home is inevitably washed away. The wisdom of anicca invites us to stop fighting the river, and instead to learn how to flow with it. Nowhere is our resistance to impermanence more apparent than in our relationship with sleep. In our minds, we construct a solid, static idea of a perfect night's sleep. It is a monolithic block of 8 uninterrupted hours of blissful unconsciousness. We cling to this idea, we crave it, and we measure every night against this perfect fictional standard. When we have a night that matches this ideal, we are happy, but we are also filled with a subtle anxiety, a fear that we won't be able to repeat it. We try to grasp the pleasant experience, forgetting it is, by its nature, a transient cloud. Conversely, when we have a difficult night, or several difficult nights, our minds perform the opposite trick. We take a temporary, passing experience, the state of wakefulness, and we solidify it into a terrifying, permanent identity. The mind begins to tell a story. I am an insomniac. This is my new reality. It will be like this forever. We take a temporary weather pattern and convince ourselves we are doomed to live in a permanent storm. This fear of a permanent state of suffering is the source of immense anxiety. The wisdom of anicca is the sharp sword that cuts through both of these illusions. It teaches us to hold our experience with a lighter touch. When you are experiencing a good night's sleep, enjoy it fully. Be grateful for it, but know that it is a passing condition. It is a gift for this night, not a guarantee for all nights. By seeing its impermanent nature, you can enjoy it without the clinging that creates future anxiety. More importantly, when you are experiencing a difficult night, the wisdom of anicca is a profound source of solace. You can gently remind yourself, this too shall pass. This state of agitated wakefulness is not a permanent sentence. It is a temporary convergence of causes and conditions. This feeling of anxiety is not a solid thing. It is a wave of energy that will rise, crest, and fall. This tired body you feel right now will not feel this way forever. The state of your mind, your body, and your emotions is in constant flux. By remembering this, you stop feeding the terrifying story of permanence, and you can begin to relax into the reality of the present moment, however uncomfortable it may be. There is a beautiful Zen story that illustrates this principle perfectly. A Zen master had a favorite teacup. It was an exquisite piece, beautifully crafted, and he used it every single day for his tea. A student, admiring the cup, commented on its beauty. The master smiled and said, "To me, this cup is already broken." The student was confused, but the master explained, "I know that because of the law of impermanence, it is inevitable that this cup will one day be dropped, or chipped, or shattered. It is in its very nature to be broken. So, by living with the understanding that it is already broken, I am completely free to enjoy its presence, its beauty, its warmth every single day without any fear of its eventual loss. The student understood. Many months later, the cup was accidentally knocked from a table and it shattered into 100 pieces on the floor. The students were distraught, but the master was perfectly calm. He looked down at the pieces and simply said, "Of course, our idea of a perfect night's sleep is that beautiful teacup. We cherish it, we guard it, and we live in constant, low-grade fear of it breaking, of having a bad night." The practice of contemplating impermanence is the practice of seeing that the cup is already broken. Sleep, by its very nature, is a fluctuating, unpredictable biological process. There will be good nights, and there will be nights that are not so good. By accepting this fundamental, impermanent nature of things, we can let go of the frantic need to control the uncontrollable. We can meet a difficult night not with shock, panic, and despair, but with the calm, wise acceptance of course, this happens sometimes. This is the nature of things. This too shall pass. You can practice this contemplation as you are lying in bed. Turn your attention to the ever-changing landscape of your own body. Notice the flow of sensations. An area of warmth in your hand gives way to coolness. An itch appears on your leg, and then, without you doing anything, it vanishes. The rhythm of your breath is subtly different from one moment to the next. Witness this constant river of change within your own physical form. Then, watch the mind. Notice how no thought is permanent. A worry about money arises, holds your attention for a moment, and then dissolves, replaced by a memory from your vacation, which is then replaced by the sound of a dog barking outside. The mind is a waterfall, a constant cascade of transient mental events. None of them are solid. None of them are forever. When a particularly difficult thought or feeling of anxiety gets you in its grip, you can gently, silently repeat the phrase, "This is impermanent," or "This too shall pass." This is not a denial of your present experience. It is a powerful reminder of its true, transient nature, which robs the experience of its terrifying sense of permanence. The wisdom of Anika is a profound release. It unties the knots of our attachment and our aversion. It teaches us to soften our grip, to flow with the great river of life, instead of constantly trying to build dams against it. By understanding that everything changes, we release ourselves from the immense pressure to achieve a perfect, static, unchanging state of good sleep. We can relax. We can allow life, with all its unpredictable rhythms of good nights and bad nights, to simply be as it is. This realization that all of our experiences are in flux is deeply liberating, but Buddhist wisdom invites us to take one step further, to ask an even more profound question. We have seen that our thoughts and feelings are impermanent clouds. But what about the sky? What about the experiencer? Who is this I that is having such a difficult time with sleep? As we turn the lens of our investigation onto this very sense of self that we hold so dear, we come to another startling discovery that can untie the final, deepest knot of our suffering. This is the wisdom of non-self, or anatta. The wisdom of impermanence, or anicca, reveals a world in constant motion. It shows us that our thoughts, our feelings, and our bodily sensations are like clouds drifting through the sky, like water flowing in a river transient, ungraspable and ever-changing. This insight is profoundly freeing, but it naturally leads to an even deeper inquiry. If all the components of our experience are in flux, what about the one who seems to be at the very center of it all? Who is this I that is aware of the thoughts? Who is this me that is feeling the anxiety? Who is this self that is suffering from a lack of sleep? This question brings us to the doorstep of what many consider the most subtle, challenging, and ultimately liberating of the Buddhist teachings, the wisdom of anatta, or non-self. Let us be very clear from the outset. Anatta does not mean that you do not exist. It is not a doctrine of annihilation. You are clearly here experiencing these words. What anatta points to is that we do not exist as a separate, solid, continuous, and independent entity. The self that we feel to be so solid and real, the CEO and the headquarters of our mind, is, upon close examination, nowhere to be found. The Buddha taught that what we call a self is actually a dynamic, interdependent process, a temporary convergence of 5 distinct streams of experience. These are the body, our feelings, our perceptions, our mental habits and impulses, and the flickering stream of consciousness itself. There is a body, but it is constantly changing. There are feelings, but they arise and vanish. There are thoughts, but they are an endless cascade. There is awareness, but it is dependent on an object to be aware of. What we call I is simply the name we give to the momentary coming together of these 5 flowing rivers. The self is not a noun, it is a verb. It is a process of selfing, not a static self. A beautiful way to understand this is to return to the image of the river. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." This has a double meaning. First, the water in the river is constantly flowing and changing, so the river you step into now is different from the one you stepped into a moment ago. But second, the you who is stepping is also not the same. In the moments between steps, your body has changed, your thoughts have shifted, your feelings have fluctuated. The you of this moment is different from the you of the last. We give this entire flowing process of water a single convenient label, the river. And this label creates the powerful illusion that there is a static, unchanging thing called a river. But there is no river entity separate from the flow of water. In exactly the same way, we give this flowing, interconnected process of body and mind a single, convenient label, me. And this creates the powerful illusion of a solid, unchanging self. But upon investigation, there is no me separate from the process. There is a flow, but no fixed entity that is flowing. How does this profound philosophical insight help us when we are lying awake at 3 a.m.? It helps by completely depersonalizing the struggle. Pay close attention to the language your mind uses during a difficult night. I can't sleep. My insomnia is getting worse. I am a failure at this. This language is saturated with a sense of a solid I, who is the protagonist of a tragic drama. This I is the one who is failing. This I is the one who owns the problem of my insomnia. This personal identification makes the suffering infinitely worse. It loads a simple, neutral reality of wakefulness with a heavy burden of shame, guilt, and personal failure. The wakefulness itself is the first arrow, but the story of I am failing is the intensely painful second arrow that we shoot at ourselves. The wisdom of anatta invites us to experiment with a radical shift in perspective and language. Instead of saying, I can't sleep, we can learn to observe there is an experience of wakefulness happening in this body and mind. Instead of getting caught in the drama of my anxiety, we can simply and accurately note there is a feeling of anxiety arising. This subtle shift is revolutionary. It removes the I from the center of the drama. It reframes the experience from a personal failure to an impersonal phenomenon. The wakefulness is no longer evidence of your inadequacy. The anxiety is no longer a flaw in your character. They are simply ownerless events arising due to a complex web of causes and conditions, just like the weather. Is the sky a failure when a storm passes through it? Number. The sky simply allows the weather to happen. When we see our wakefulness and anxiety as impersonal weather patterns passing through the vast sky of our awareness, we stop blaming ourselves, and when we stop blaming ourselves, a huge portion of the suffering simply dissolves. You can actively practice this insight. When a worrying thought arises, you can gently ask yourself, who is thinking this? Where did this thought come from? Who owns it? You will not find a solid thinker. You will only find the thought itself, arising and passing away in awareness. When you feel a physical pain or discomfort, you can try to experience it as a raw, ownerless sensation rather than as my pain. You can notice there is a sensation of heat in the shoulder rather than my shoulder is killing me. This creates a sliver of space, a bit of breathing room around the sensation, which often lessens its intensity. Most powerfully, when the mind begins to spin the story of I am an insomniac, you can learn to recognize it for what it is. a recurring mental habit, a well-worn groove in the record of the mind. You can see it not as an essential truth about who you are, but as an impersonal thought pattern. You can even label it, the insomnia story is playing again. This act of recognition frees you from having to believe it. It is just another cloud passing through the sky. The wisdom of anatta is the ultimate practice of letting go. With the wisdom of impermanence, we learn to let go of our attachment to our changing experiences. With the wisdom of non-self, we learn to let go of our attachment to the very experiencer itself. The entire edifice of suffering is built on the foundation of a solid, separate self who wants permanent pleasure and fears permanent pain. When that foundation is seen to be an illusion, the whole structure crumbles. The heavy, personalized problem of my insomnia is replaced by the light, spacious observation of wakefulness is happening. And in this space, free from the burden of a self that needs to succeed or fail, a deep and authentic peace can finally be found. We have now journeyed to the very heart of the Buddhist teachings for liberation. We have diagnosed our disease, we have understood its cause and craving, and we have seen how it can be completely unraveled through the profound insights of impermanence and non-self. We have been given a powerful set of conceptual tools for understanding, alongside meditative practices for experiencing these truths directly. But a final, crucial question remains. How should we relate to these very teachings? Is it possible to turn these beautiful, liberating ideas into another set of rigid beliefs to cling to? The Buddha, with his immense wisdom, saw this danger clearly. He taught that his words were not a destination to be worshipped, but a vehicle to be used for a journey and then, once the other shore is reached, to be let go of. This is illustrated perfectly in his beautiful parable of the raft. We have now journeyed deep into the heart of Buddhist wisdom. We have explored the mind, body, and heart, and we have been introduced to the profound, liberating truths of impermanence and non-self. We now hold a collection of powerful pointers to the nature of reality and a set of skillful means for finding peace. The anchor of the breath, the gentle sweep of the body scan, the warmth of loving kindness, the insight into the 5 hindrances, the wisdom of anicca and anattathese are the precious tools we have gathered. But a crucial question naturally arises. How are we to hold these teachings? What should our relationship be to these very tools? Is it possible that the very instruments designed for our liberation could themselves become a new kind of cage, a new source of subtle suffering? The Buddha, in his immense wisdom and foresight, understood this danger perfectly. He knew the human mind's tendency to cling, even to the most beautiful and liberating of ideas. And so, he offered his followers a simple, powerful parable to guide them, the parable of the raft. The Buddha asked them to imagine a man on a journey who comes to the edge of a great expanse of water. This first shore represents our ordinary life of confusion, anxiety, and dissatisfaction in the world of the restless monkey mind. The far shore, barely visible in the distance, represents liberation, peace, wisdom, and the end of suffering. There is no bridge to cross this dangerous water, no ferry to carry him over. The man, being intelligent and resourceful, understands that he cannot simply plunge into the dangerous currents. So, he gathers together grass, twigs, branches, and logs. He lashes them together with vines and, with skillful and diligent effort, he builds himself a simple raft. The building of this raft is our practice. It is the effort we put into mindfulness, the time we dedicate to meditation, the energy we apply to understanding these teachings. Using his raft, the man pushes off from the shore and begins to paddle. He uses the raft to navigate the treacherous currents and stay afloat, safe from the dangers of the water. This journey is our path of practice, using the techniques and insights as our vehicle to navigate the turbulent waters of our own minds. Finally, after a long and effortful journey, he arrives safely on the far shore. He has reached his destination, the shore of peace, safety, and freedom. The raft has served its purpose magnificently. The Buddha then posed the critical question to his monks. Now that this man is safely on the other side, what should he do with the raft? Should he, thinking, "This raft has been so helpful to me, I cannot possibly abandon it," hoist it up onto his shoulders, and carry it with him as he continues his journey on the dry land? The monks replied, "No, Lord, that would be a foolish and heavy burden. The raft was for crossing over, not for carrying." The Buddha agreed. The wise man, he explained, would pull the raft onto the shore, express his gratitude for its service, and leave it there, perhaps for another traveler who might need it. He would then continue his journey on land, unburdened and free. The Buddha concluded with this powerful statement, "In the same way, monks, I have taught the Dhamma teachings as being like a raft, for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping and holding on." This parable is a profound reminder of the true purpose of all spiritual practice. Everything we have discussed, every technique, every concept, every piece of wisdom is part of the raft. The mindfulness of breathing, the body scan, the loving kindness practice these are, the logs and the vines, the practical tools we use to stay afloat. The intellectual understanding of dukkha, anicca, and anattathas is the knowledge of how to build the raft and how to paddle it, the navigational chart for our journey. The raft is essential. Without it, we would be swept away by the currents of our own habitual thinking. We must build it with care, with right effort, and use it with skill. The danger lies in what happens when we reach the other shoriest state of greater peace, clarity, and non-reactivity in our daily lives. The mind's habit of clinging is so strong that it can even cling to the tools of liberation. This is a subtle trap known as spiritual materialism, where the ego takes ownership of the spiritual path and turns it into another set of possessions and achievements. We might become attached to being a good meditator. We start judging our practice, feeling proud on days when our mind is calm, and frustrated and self-critical on days when it is busy. We become anxious about the quality of our meditation, turning the very process of letting go into another source of striving. This is carrying the raft. We might become attached to the intellectual concepts. We learn the Pali words and the philosophical frameworks, and we might subtly begin to feel superior to others who don't have this special knowledge. We decorate our raft with fancy ornaments and admire it, forgetting that its only purpose is to cross the water. This, too, is carrying the raft. Most relevant to our nightly practice, we can become anxious about the techniques themselves. We might lie in bed and think, am I doing the body scan correctly? What if I'm not feeling enough metta? Am I really understanding non-self? We turn the raft into a new source of doubt and worry. The very teachings designed to free us from anxiety become a new anxiety about doing it right. This is the definition of a foolish burden. The purpose of these practices is not to become a perfect meditator or a flawless Buddhist scholar. The purpose is to suffer less. It is to be more free, more at peace, and more compassionate in the midst of our actual, messy, beautiful human lives. The measure of our practice is not how calm our mind is on the cushion, but how kindly we respond to our partner, how patiently we deal with traffic, and how compassionately we meet our own hearts when we are lying awake at night. The wisdom of the raft teaches us to hold these practices with a light touch. If one night the formal technique of the body scan feels like a heavy chore and is creating resistance, perhaps the skillful and wise action is to let it go. Perhaps that night, the practice is simply to rest with the feeling of the breath, or to just feel the warmth of the blankets. We use the tools that are helpful, and we don't force the ones that are not. We remember that the goal is not to perfectly execute a technique, but to find peace. The teachings are a finger pointing to the moon. The moon is liberation, peace, the end of our suffering. We must not become so obsessed with analyzing the finger that we forget to look at the beautiful moon to which it is pointing. Therefore, we approach these teachings with gratitude and respect, but without rigid, dogmatic clinging. We use them as they are intended, as practical, life-saving tools to carry us from the shore of anxiety and sleeplessness to the shore of inner peace and freedom. And once we find ourselves resting more often on that farther shore, we can relax our grip on the tools, living the freedom they have shown us, unburdened by the weight of the very raft that carried us to safety. This principle of not clinging is especially important when we approach the most profound and therefore most easily misunderstood concepts in Buddhist thought. One such concept, which is often mistaken for a nihilistic and depressing void, is the teaching on emptiness, or sunyata. To use our raft skillfully and not get weighed down by it, we must understand the truly liberating nature of this profound idea. Of all the ideas we encounter on the raft of these teachings, perhaps none is more intimidating, more easily misunderstood, or ultimately more liberating than the concept of emptiness, or sunyata. The word itself can conjure images of a cold, desolate void, a nihilistic abyss where nothing matters. We might imagine an empty mind as a blank, vacant, or unintelligent mind. This misunderstanding is a heavy piece of the raft to carry, and to find freedom, we must set it down. In the context of Buddhist wisdom, emptiness is not a lack, but a presence. It is not a void, but a vibrant, boundless field of pure potential. To understand emptiness, we must first ask the critical question, empty of what? Things are not empty of existence. A tree is a tree. A thought is a thought. Rather, they are empty of a separate, solid, independent, and permanent self-nature. This insight is the natural culmination of the two truths we have already explored. Because all things are in constant flux, anicca, and because there is no fixed, unchanging self at the core of our being, anatta, it logically follows that all phenomena are empty of a solid, standalone identity. They do not exist from their own side by their own power. A more accurate and helpful way to think of emptiness is as radical interdependence. A thing is empty of a separate self because it is full of everything else. Consider a single flower. Is there such a thing as a truly separate, independent flower? Upon examination, we see that the flower is made entirely of non-flower elements. It is made of the sunlight that nourished it, the rain that watered it, the soil that provided its minerals, the bee that pollinated its predecessor, the air that provided its carbon dioxide. The flower's entire existence is dependent on and interwoven with the entire universe. If you were to take away the sun, the soil, the air, and the water, the flower would cease to exist. It has no independent reality. It is a temporary, beautiful manifestation of a vast network of causes and conditions. In this way, the flower is empty of a separate self, but it is full of the cosmos. This is the true meaning of emptiness. It is not nothingness, it is interconnectedness. A simple and profound analogy for this is the clay bowl. What is it that makes a bowl useful? Is it the solid clay at its base? Is it the form of its walls? The essential utility of the bowl, its very boldness, lies in the empty space it contains. It is this emptiness that allows the bowl to be filled with rice or water or soup. Without this empty space, it would simply be a solid lump of clay, beautiful perhaps, but useless as a bowl. The emptiness is not a lack. It is the bowl's potential, its function, its very essence. So it is with the mind. We spend most of our lives believing that the value of our mind lies in its content. We work tirelessly to fill it, with knowledge, with memories, with plans, with opinions, with a strong sense of identity. We believe that a full mind is a valuable mind. But what happens when we lie down at night? It is precisely this fullness that becomes our torment. The mind is too full of worries about tomorrow to find peace today. It is too full of judgments about itself to allow for self-compassion. It is too full of the solid concept of me, the insomniac, to allow for the possibility of change. A mind that is completely full has no space. It is a cluttered room with no place to rest, a solid lump of clay with no capacity to receive. The wisdom of sunyata invites us to appreciate the value of the empty space. An empty mind, in this sense, is not a blank or stupid mind. On the contrary, it is a mind that is open, receptive, and infinitely flexible. It is a mind that is empty of rigid concepts. It is empty of the need to be right. It is empty of a fixed and defensive self-identity. It is empty of the second arrows of judgment and resistance. It is this very spaciousness, this mental emptiness, that creates the possibility for true peace. Sleep is an act of profound surrender. You cannot surrender if your fists are clenched, if your mind is full of control, resistance, and identity. You can only surrender when your hands are open. Emptiness is the open hand of the mind. It is the clearing in the forest where a helicopter can safely land. Our thoughts, worries, and plans make up a dense and tangled forest, but by understanding their empty, transient nature, we create the clearing where the helicopter of deep rest can finally touch down. This brings us to the nature of silence. We often think of silence as the mere absence of sound, but we can be in a perfectly soundproof room and still be deafened by the noise of our own minds. The true silence that heals, the silence that is synonymous with peace, is not an external condition. It is an internal one. It is the experience of emptiness. It is the silence that comes from the absence of the inner commentator, the one who is constantly judging, resisting, and narrating our experience. It is the silence of the sky that allows the storm cloud to pass without protest. When the mind is empty of the need to control reality, a profound, vibrant silence emerges. This silence is not a dead void. It is pregnant with life, with awareness, with peace. It is the sound of things being allowed to be exactly as they are. As you lie in bed, you can connect with this liberating truth. Look at the worry in your mind. See that it is not a solid thing. It is a fabrication, woven from memory, fear, and language. It is empty of any inherent solid reality. It is dependent on your belief in it to survive. See the identity of me, the sleepless one. See that it too is a story, a concept. It is empty of any ultimate truth. It is a label you have placed on a flowing process. By seeing the emptiness of these mental constructs, their grip on you loosens. You are no longer their prisoner. You don't have to fight them or destroy them. You simply see through them. You see their transparent, dreamlike nature. Emptiness, then, is not a terrifying abyss to be feared, but a liberating truth to be realized. It is the good news that we are not as solid, stuck, or separate as we believe ourselves to be. We are fluid, interconnected, and full of boundless possibility. An empty mind is not a vacant mind, but a spacious one, free from the clutter of its own self-imposed limitations. By gently and patiently emptying our minds of the heavy furniture of rigid beliefs, harsh judgments, and the suffocating sense of a fixed and failing self, we create the open, silent, and welcoming clearing where deep rest and true peace can finally land and make their home. This radical understanding that things are empty of a separate self, precisely because they are completely interwoven with everything else, leads us directly to our next exploration. We must now turn our attention to the very mechanics of this interdependence. How does the way we live our day truly become the content of our night? How does every action, word, and thought contribute to the web of our reality? This is the profound teaching on interconnectedness. The wisdom of emptiness reveals a universe where nothing exists in isolation. Everything is empty of a separate, standalone self because it is completely full of and dependent upon everything else. This insight is not an abstract philosophy. It is a deeply practical truth that bridges the gap between our hectic daytime lives and our restless nights. It is the key to understanding how our day becomes our night. This is the teaching on interconnectedness, or, as it is known in Buddhist thought, dependent origination. The principle is simple and profound. This is because that is. This ceases to be because that ceases to be. Nothing arises from nothing. Every single moment of our experience is the result of a vast and intricate web of preceding causes and conditions. Your state of mind at this very moment is not an accident, it is a harvest. And your experience tonight as you lie in bed will be the direct harvest of the seeds you have planted throughout your day. We often treat our sleeplessness as an isolated event, a problem that mysteriously appears when we turn off the lights. We see it as a battle to be fought in the dark, separate from the rest of our lives. But this is an illusion. The night is simply the time when the accounts of the day are settled. Imagine you have a stress account in your mind. Throughout the day, Every time you rush through a meal while checking your email, every frustrating traffic jam, every unresolved conflict with a colleague, every anxious thought about the future, each one of these is a small deposit into that stress account. We are often so busy and distracted during the day that we don't even notice these deposits being made. But the account is growing. Then, at night, when all the distractions fade away, the mind, in its own way, tries to balance the books. It presents you with the bill for the day's accumulated stress. And this bill manifests as a racing heart, a churning stomach, and an endless loop of worried thoughts. The problem didn't start at night, the bill just came due. The emotional residue of our day does not magically vanish when we walk through our bedroom door. An argument with a loved one, a feeling of being unappreciated at work, a simmering resentment, these energies are carried with us. They are stored in the tension in our shoulders and the clenching of our jaw. They become the fuel for the monkey mind's nightly theater, replaying conversations and grievances in an endless, agonizing loop. Likewise, the physical conditions we create during the day directly shape our night. A late afternoon coffee, a heavy meal too close to bedtime, a lack of physical movement, all these things create a physiological state that is inhospitable to rest. And in our modern world, we make massive deposits into our agitation account through the constant consumption of information. The endless stream of news, social media updates, and digital noise creates a state of low-grade hypervigilance in our nervous system. We are bringing the world's chaos, the world's tragedies, and the world's anxieties to bed with us on our pillow each night, and then we wonder why we cannot find our own peace. A beautiful and ancient metaphor for this profound interconnectedness is the image of Indra's net. In the heavenly realm of the god Indra, there hangs a vast and marvelous net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single node where the threads of the net cross, there is a single, perfectly polished, multifaceted jewel. The most extraordinary quality of this net is that if you were to look closely at the surface of any one jewel, you would see reflected in it every single other jewel in the entire infinite net. Each jewel does not just reflect the one next to it, but contains the reflection of all the others. And each of those reflections, in turn, contains all the reflections of all the others, on and on into infinity. Each jewel in the net is a perfect expression of the whole. You are a jewel in this net. Your state of mind tonight as you lie in bed is one such jewel. But reflected in its surface, you can see all the other jewels of your day. You can see the jewel of the hurried breakfast you ate this morning. You can see the jewel of the stressful email that arrived at noon. You can see the jewel of the kind word you shared with a stranger. You can see the jewel of the violent movie you watched before bed. Your night is not separate from your day. It contains your day. The quality of your rest is not an isolated event. It is a reflection of the entire web of your life. This understanding is not meant to create more pressure or guilt. It is meant to empower us. It shows us that the best way to prepare for a good night's sleep is not just in what we do in the hour before bed, but in how we live our entire day. The most effective sleep medicine is a day lived with mindful awareness. This does not mean we must be perfectly mindful in every single moment. That would be an impossible standard, another form of striving. It means we can learn to weave small islands of presence into the river of our day. It is the simple act of taking 3 conscious breaths before you answer a ringing phone. It is the choice to eat your lunch without a screen, just for 10 minutes, and to actually taste your food. It is the practice of feeling your feet on the floor as you walk from your desk to the water cooler. Each of these tiny moments of returning to the present, of noticing our experience without judgment, is a small withdrawal from the stress account. It is a way of processing and releasing the emotional charges of life in real time, rather than letting them accumulate into a mountain of debt that must be paid at night. Think of yourself as a farmer. A farmer who wants a bountiful harvest of corn in the autumn does not suddenly start worrying about it in October. The work for the harvest begins in the spring with the careful preparation of the soil. It continues through the summer with the diligent planting of the seeds, the patient watering, the pulling of weeds, and the protection of the young plants. The golden harvest in the autumn is not a miracle. It is the natural, unavoidable result of the causes and conditions that were cultivated over the entire season. A peaceful night's rest is the harvest. A day lived with moments of mindfulness, kindness, and presence is the farming. Every time you pause, breathe, and meet your experience with gentle awareness during the day, you are tending to the soil, planting a seed of peace that will blossom in the quiet of the night. The wisdom of interconnectedness dissolves the illusion that our sleeplessness is a personal failing that mysteriously attacks us in the dark. It reveals that our night is the mirror of our day, a direct reflection of the quality of our awareness during our waking hours. By weaving these small moments of presence into the fabric of our daily lives, we are not just living a better, more peaceful day, we are actively and skillfully composing a more peaceful night. This holistic understanding invites us to take a more gentle approach to the transition from day to night. One of the most powerful and practical ways to honor this interconnectedness and to begin this transition is to consciously and skillfully reduce the amount of sensory fuel we add to the fire of our minds. It is the practice of creating an intentional space of quiet simplicity for the mind to naturally settle. This is the profound and healing practice known as noble silence. We have seen how our night is a direct reflection of our day, how the threads of our waking life are woven into the fabric of our rest. This understanding of interconnectedness is not a burden but an empowerment. It shows us that we can actively shape the quality of our nights by tending to the quality of our days. One of the most direct, practical, and compassionate actions we can take to honor this truth is to create a deliberate buffer zone, a gentle transition between the noise and complexity of the world and the deep quiet of our inner sanctuary. This is the healing practice of noble silence. When we hear the word silence, we typically think of the absence of talking. And while refraining from speech is certainly a part of this practice, noble silence is far more expansive and profound. It is a conscious and intentional sensory fast. It is the practice of turning down the volume not just on our own voice, but on all the channels of input that constantly flood our nervous system. In our hyperconnected world, our senses are under relentless assault from the moment we wake until the moment we try to sleep. Noble silence is the act of giving them a period of true restorative peace. This practice involves the silencing of our various senses. There is the silence of the ears, deliberately turning off the podcast, the news radio, the stimulating music, and allowing our auditory field to rest in either natural quiet or perhaps the gentle hum of a fan. There is the silence of the eyes, making a conscious decision to turn off the screens, the television, the laptop, and most importantly, the phone. This means no more late nights scrolling through social media, no more checking emails, no more watching thrilling or dramatic shows that stir up our emotions. And there is the silence of the mind's mouth, which is the constant intake of complex information. This means putting away the work report, the challenging analytical book, or any task that requires problem solving and planning. Noble silence is a radical act in a world that is addicted to noise and stimulation. It is a declaration that, for this period of time, we will stop taking things in so that our system has a chance to process what it has already absorbed. To understand why this is so powerful, imagine that your mind is a deep lake. Throughout the day, every interaction, every email, every news alert, every worry, and every stimulating piece of entertainment is like someone throwing a handful of dirt and sediment into this lake. By the end of the day, after thousands of such handfuls have been thrown, the water of the lake is completely murky, brown, and turbulent. It is so agitated that you cannot see through it at all. This is the state of our mind as we get into bed, cloudy, restless, and opaque. Now, imagine trying to clear this murky water by plunging your hands in and frantically trying to grab the individual particles of dirt and force them to the bottom. This is what we do when we fight with our thoughts, when we try to wrestle our minds into submission. The effort is futile. In fact, it only stirs up the water more, making it even murkier. The wisdom of noble silence is the wisdom of the lake. The only way to clear the water is to stop throwing more dirt into it and then to allow the lake to be still. You protect it from the wind and the rain, and you simply wait. Left to itself, the natural law of gravity will do the work. The sediment, no longer being agitated, will slowly, gracefully, and effortlessly settle to the bottom. In time, the water will become crystal clear. You will be able to see all the way to the bottom. The lake will have found its own natural state of clarity and peace. Noble silence is the act of stopping the throwing of dirt into the lake of your mind. By intentionally cutting off the constant stream of external sensory input, you create the conditions of stillness necessary for the sediment of the day's experiences to naturally settle. You do not have to force your mind to be quiet. You simply have to stop actively making it noisy. How do we put this into practice? It is wonderfully simple. Designate the last hour, or even just the last 30 minutes, before your intended bedtime as your period of noble silence. This becomes a sacred, protected time. If you live with others, you can gently communicate your intention. This is not about ignoring them, but about inviting them into a shared space of quietude, or simply carving out this personal time for yourself. During this hour, you engage only in activities that are calming and non-informational. You can perform the gentle pre-sleep rituals we have discussed. You could sip a cup of herbal tea, feeling its warmth and noticing its aroma. You could do some light, mindful stretching, re-inhabiting your body. You could read a physical book of poetry or gentle wisdom literature. You could listen to soft, ambient music without lyrics. You could simply sit in a comfortable chair and look out the window. Or you could do nothing at all, just sitting or lying in quiet, feeling your own presence. The key is that all these activities are unplugged. They soothe the nervous system rather than stimulating it. It is important to approach this practice with a gentle and realistic attitude. When you first stop the constant flow of external noise, you may find that your internal noise seems to become louder. This is completely normal. It is as if you have been in a loud factory all day, and when the machinery finally shuts off, you become acutely aware of the ringing in your own ears. The inner chatter was always there, but it was being masked by the external stimulation. Now, you can hear it clearly. Do not be discouraged by this. This is the sediment beginning to stir as it prepares to settle. This is where you can use your other tools. Meet this inner noise with acceptance. Anchor yourself in the breath. See the thoughts as clouds passing in the sky. Noble silence creates the container, and your mindfulness practices are what you do within that container. You are giving the mind a safe space to finally process its backlog from the day. And as it does so, without new information being added, it will naturally begin to quiet down. This practice is an act of profound kindness for an exhausted and overstimulated nervous system. It is a way of honoring your body's deep need to transition gracefully from the doing mode of the day to the being mode of the night. In the silence, you are not creating an empty void. You are creating a rich, nourishing space. It is a space for healing, for integration, and for reconnecting with the quieter, deeper parts of yourself that are so often drowned out by the clamor of modern life. By turning down the volume of the world, we can finally begin to hear the subtle whispers of our own intuition, our own hearts, and our own deep wisdom. We can finally find the restorative quiet that is our human birthright. As we learn to rest in this profound quiet, and as the body and mind finally surrender to the embrace of sleep, our consciousness enters another fascinating and often mysterious realm, the world of dreams. What can these nightly journeys teach us? How are they connected to the state of our waking mind? From a Buddhist perspective, the dream world is not a random or separate reality, but another vivid reflection of the mind's habits and conditioning. A calmer day and a quieter transition into the night can profoundly influence the very fabric and feeling of our dreams, leading us toward a rest that is deeper and more complete. As we rest in the quiet sanctuary, we have created a space of noble silence. Our consciousness begins its gentle descent. We let go of the day, release our grip on the thinking mind, and drift from the familiar shore of wakefulness into the mysterious, fluid territory of the dream world. For most of human history, dreams have been a source of fascination and fear, seen as divine messages, prophecies of the future, or simply as meaningless neurological static. The rich psychological tradition of Buddhism offers a different and deeply practical perspective. It sees the dream world not as an alien landscape visited by a traveling soul, but as a direct and vivid continuation of our waking mind. It is a mirror held up to our deepest habits, preoccupations, and unresolved energies, a place where the painter of our mind works through the night with the leftover pigments of our day. From this viewpoint, there is no hard, impermeable wall between waking and dreaming. It is a continuum of consciousness. The same mind stream that thinks, feels, and reacts during the day is the very same stream that flows through our nights. The primary difference is that the 5 physical synesthete, sound, smell, taste, and touch, are largely dormant. The mind, now cut off from new external input, begins to project its own show, using the vast library of props it has stored away. Memories, images, emotional residues, and most profoundly, our deepest karmic traces, or what we might call our ingrained habitual tendencies. The director of our daily mental movies does not go home when we fall asleep. He simply starts working with a different script, one written in the symbolic, non-linear language of the subconscious. A simple parable can help illuminate this connection. Imagine a painter who spends all his waking hours obsessed with creating images of terrifying, angry monsters. He uses dark, aggressive color-charged reds, deep blacks, jarring yellows. His brushstrokes are violent and chaotic. His studio, which is his mind, is filled from wall to wall with these monstrous forms. He thinks about them constantly. He refines their claws and sharpens their teeth. When this painter finally lays down his brush and goes to sleep at night, is it any surprise that his dreams are haunted by these very same monsters? They chase him through his dreamscapes, their forms even more vivid and frightening now that the constraints of the physical canvas are gone. His own creations have come to life to torment him. Now, imagine another painter. She spends her days painting serene landscapes, tranquil lakes reflecting an open sky, gentle rolling hills, vast and peaceful forests. She uses a palette of soft blues, gentle greens, and warm, luminous whites. Her brush strokes are calm, patient, and deliberate. Her mind, her studio, is filled with light, space, and a feeling of peace. When she goes to sleep at night, her dreams are likely to be a continuation of this work. She may dream of floating on a peaceful lake or walking through a silent, sun-dappled forest. Her dream world is a reflection of the beauty and calm she so carefully cultivated during her day. We are all, each one of us, this painter. Our thoughts, our words, and our actions throughout the day are our brushstrokes. The canvas is our own consciousness. If we spend our day painting with the colors of anger, anxiety, greed, and resentment, we should not be surprised when our nights are filled with monstrous dreams, dreams of being chased, of falling, of fighting, of being trapped. These are not random events. They are the natural harvest of the seeds we have sown. Conversely, if we make a conscious effort to paint our day with the colors of kindness, mindfulness, generosity, and acceptance, our dream world will naturally begin to reflect this peace. Our dreams become calmer, more spacious, and less threatening. The specific practices we have been exploring all have a profound influence on the texture of our dreams. When we practice mindfulness throughout the day, we are training ourselves to be aware of our mental states without being lost in them. This habit of awareness can sometimes even carry over into the dream state, leading to the experience of lucid dreaming, where we become aware that we are dreaming while still in the dream. In such a dream, we might see a monster approaching, but because we are lucid, we recognize it not as an external threat, but as a projection of our own mind. Instead of running in terror, we might feel curiosity or even compassion for it, and in that moment, the monster loses all its power. When we practice metta, or loving kindness, we are fundamentally changing the emotional palette we work with. A mind that has been steeped in the warmth of goodwill and self-compassion is far less likely to produce dreams saturated with fear and hostility. We are less likely to be pursued by monsters if we have spent our day practicing friendship with our own heart. When we practice seeing the impermanent and selfless nature of our experience, we lessen our identification with the role of a solid I, who is the hero or victim of a drama. This can translate into a dream life where we are less of a terrified protagonist at the center of a chaotic plot and more of a calm witness watching a fascinating film unfold. The connection between the quality of our dreams and the quality of our rest is direct and physiological. Anxious or terrifying dreams trigger the body's fight or flight response. Even while asleep, our heart rate can spike, our breathing can become rapid and shallow, our muscles can tense up, and we might physically toss and turn. We can even be jolted awake, our bodies flooded with stress hormones. We may have been asleep, but we have not been resting. Peaceful, neutral, or even pleasant dreams, on the other hand, allow the body and mind to remain in a state of deep, parasympathetic relaxation. The body is allowed to do its essential work of healing and restoration, and we awaken feeling not just physically rested, but emotionally and psychologically refreshed. Therefore, the ultimate form of dream work is not necessarily the analysis of dream symbols after we wake up, but the purification of the mind before we go to sleep. The goal is not to control our dreams, which is a futile and stressful endeavor. The goal is to influence them at their source. By tending to the garden of our mind during our waking hours, by patiently pulling the weeds of anger and anxiety, and diligently planting the seeds of mindfulness and kindness, we naturally and effortlessly cultivate a more peaceful and restorative dreamscape. The work we do in the light of day is the truest form of sleep hygiene, ensuring that even when our conscious mind rests, our journey through the night is a gentle and healing one. This entire journey, from identifying the restless chatter of the monkey mind to purifying the very wellspring of our dreams, has been a deep exploration of tools and insights. We have gathered so much for our raft, but after all this learning, after all this practice, what is the most essential attitude to carry forward, not just tonight, but for all the nights and days to come? There is a subtle danger of becoming an expert in these matters, of feeling that we have it all figured out, which can lead to a new kind of rigidity and striving. The final and perhaps most important key to this entire path is the wisdom of continually letting go of our expertise, of releasing what we think we know and returning always to the fresh, open, and curious state of a beginner's mind. We have traveled a great distance on this inner journey. We began by diagnosing the restless, chattering monkey mind. We explored the deep truths of our inherent unsatisfactoriness and its roots in the burning thirst of craving and aversion. We have learned to use the tools on our raft, the anchor of the breath, the gentle sweep of the body scan, and the warming kindness of metta. We have examined the nature of impermanence and the illusion of a solid self. We have learned to create a physical sanctuary in our homes and a silent sanctuary in our minds. We now hold a comprehensive map and a rich toolkit for finding our way to the shores of peace. But with all this knowledge, with all this practice, a final, subtle danger arises. It is the danger of the expert's mind. After practicing for some time, after experiencing some moments of peace and some nights of better rest, the mind has a tendency to believe that it knows. It builds a new identity. I am a meditator. I know these techniques. I understand these concepts. This expert mind, while seemingly a sign of progress, can become the greatest obstacle of all. It is a mind that is full of expectations, comparisons, and judgments. It is a mind that is no longer open. In the Zen tradition, there is a concept of profound importance called Shoshin, which translates as beginner's mind. A famous teaching states, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. To keep our practice alive, vibrant, and truly effective, we must learn over and over again to let go of the expert's mind and return to the beginner's heart. To understand beginner's mind, think of a small child seeing snow for the very first time. There is no analysis. There is no comparison to last year's snowfall, no judgment about whether it is good snow or bad snow. There are no expectations about how long it will last or what it will become. There is only a state of pure, open, and unfiltered wonder. The child is completely present, filled with a sense of awe and direct experience. This is beginner's mind. It is an attitude of openness, eagerness, and a complete lack of preconceptions. The expert's mind is the opposite. The expert's mind approaches the pillow at night armed with a checklist and a history report. After you have a particularly peaceful meditation or a wonderful night of deep sleep, the expert's mind records this experience and turns it into the new gold standard. The next night, when you sit down to practice, the expert's mind is already comparing the present moment to that golden memory. This isn't as good as last night, it whispers. My mind is much busier. I'm not feeling as calm. This comparison immediately creates a sense of lack and frustration. It turns a practice of acceptance into a session of judgment and striving. You are no longer experiencing the present moment. You are trying to recreate a memory of the past. The expert's mind also operates in reverse. After a difficult night of tossing and turning, the expert's mind carries the heavy baggage of that failure into the next evening. Before your head has even hit the pillow, the expert is already predicting the outcome. This is probably going to be another bad night, it says. My anxiety feels the same as it did yesterday. This probably won't work. We are defeated before we even begin, weighed down by the ghost of last night's experience. The expert's mind, because it believes it already knows how the story will end, closes the door on any other possibility. It is a closed loop of self-fulfilling prophecies. A mind that is full of knowing has no room to learn, no space to discover anything new. The practice of cultivating beginner's mind is therefore the practice of letting go. It is the conscious choice to treat each night, each moment, and each breath as a completely new event. As you get into bed tonight, the practice is to intentionally release the story of last night. Whether it was a good night or a bad night, it is over. It is a memory, a ghost. It has no power over this present moment unless you give it that power. You can say to yourself, last night is gone. This is a new night. I do not know what it will hold. In the same way, you must let go of your expectations for the night to come. You do not know if you will fall asleep quickly or lie awake for a time. You do not know if your mind will be calm or busy. The practice is to meet this uncertainty not with fear, but with a gentle curiosity. A powerful phrase to cultivate beginner's mind is the simple, humble admission, I don't know. When the mind starts its expert analysis, predicting and comparing, you can gently interrupt it with this phrase, I don't know if I will sleep well tonight, but I know that I can be kind to myself in this moment. I don't know if this meditation will be good or bad, but I know that I can feel this single breath right now as if it were the first and only breath I have ever taken. This simple admission of not knowing short-circuits the expert's rigid certainty and reopens the field of infinite possibility. It brings you back to the direct, lived reality of the present. With this attitude, you can infuse all your practices with new life. Can you feel the sensation of the breath as if you have never felt it before? Can you explore the sensations in your toes during the body scan with the fresh curiosity of an astronaut landing on a new planet? Can you offer the phrases of loving kindness, not as a stale repetition, but as a genuine, heartfelt wish being born in this very moment? This approach prevents the practice from ever becoming a dull, mechanical routine. It keeps it alive, vibrant, and always capable of revealing something new. In many ways, beginner's mind is not a separate practice, but the very essence and culmination of the entire path. It is the living embodiment of anicca, the truth of impermanence. If everything is truly in a state of constant flux, then every single moment is, by definition, completely new and unrepeatable. To see this is to live in beginner's mind. It is the expression of anatta, the truth of non-self. The expert self, the one who is so sure it knows everything, is seen as just another temporary, illusory construct of the mind. Letting go of the expert is letting go of the ego. It is the highest expression of right effort because it is an energy that is completely free of striving, grasping, and attachment to outcomes. It is a gentle, open, and receptive allowing. So, the final instruction is perhaps the most simple. Let go of everything you have learned. Let go of your identity as someone who is practicing or trying to get better. Let go of your hopes for a perfect outcome and your fears of a difficult night. Show up to your pillow tonight as a beginner. Show up with an empty and open mind, ready to meet whatever arises with curiosity and with kindness. True wisdom is not found in the accumulation of knowledge, but in the courage to continually return to a state of not knowing. For it is in this wide open, spacious, and humble beginner's mind that the mystery of life can unfold and the deepest peace can be found. And so, our journey through the many detailed landscapes of practice comes to a gentle and fitting close. We have diagnosed the restless mind, we have explored the raft of profound teachings, and we have discovered the essential attitude of the beginner's heart that keeps the entire journey fresh and alive. We are now ready to step back, to look at the entirety of the path we have traveled, and to gather the most essential truths of our journey into a final, empowering message of hope and healing. Our long journey together through the inner landscape of the mind is now drawing to a gentle close. We began where so many of us find ourselves in the dark, in the quiet of the night, yet besieged by the ceaseless noise of a restless mind. We felt the profound weariness of a body that craved rest and a mind that refused to grant it. From that place of struggle, we embarked on a path of discovery. We gave a name to our affliction, recognizing the frantic patterns of the monkey mind and the subtle but pervasive unsatisfactoriness the Buddha called dukkha. We looked deeper and found its source in the burning thirst of craving and aversion, the very engine that loads and fires the second arrow of our own self-inflicted suffering. And then, with patience and kindness, we began to build our raft. We learned to use the simple, life-giving breath as an anchor, a steady point of return in the midst of any storm. With the gentle sweep of the body scan, we came home to our physical selves, releasing the tensions we didn't even know we were holding. With the warmth of loving kindness, we learned to soften the heart, replacing the harsh inner critic with the voice of a compassionate friend. We ventured further into the profound and liberating wisdom of anicca and anatta, realizing that our experiences are as transient as clouds and that the solid self we work so hard to defend is as fluid and ever-changing as a river. We learn to use these teachings as a practical raft to cross the waters of our anxiety and the wisdom to let go of the raft itself, lest it become another burden. And finally, we discovered the most essential secret to keeping the journey alive, to approach each moment, each breath, and each night with the fresh, open, and curious heart of a beginner. We may have begun this journey seeking a technique to fix our sleep, a strategy to conquer the night, but the deepest truth we have uncovered is this: a peaceful night of sleep is not the primary goal. It is a beautiful and natural byproduct. It is the effortless consequence of a peaceful mind. The true aim of this entire path is the cultivation of that inner peace. This peace is not something you need to build or import or achieve through heroic effort. It is, and always has been, your fundamental nature. It is the silent, spacious, sky-like awareness that has been here all along, temporarily obscured by the clouds of our conditioning. Our practice, then, is not a war against the clouds. It is simply the gentle, patient, and persistent work of creating enough stillness to remember the vast and untroubled sky that is our home. You now have the tools. You have the map. You have everything you need for this journey of healing. The night need no longer be an enemy to be fought, a challenge to be overcome. It can become a friend. It can be a sacred and precious time, an invitation to let go of the day, to release the armor we wear in the world, and to rest in the quiet sanctuary of our own being. There will still be difficult nights. The weather of the mind is not always calm. Be especially kind to yourself then. Remember the raft. Remember the anchor of your breath. Remember that you are the sky, and that every storm, no matter how fierce, eventually passes. This is not a path of perfection, but a path of compassion. May you walk it with grace, with courage, and with a gentle heart. May you be at peace. May you find deep and healing rest. And may you awaken both in the morning and in your life to the boundless peace that has been waiting for you all along. YouTube description. Copy and paste this into your YouTube video description. You can fill in the timestamps once the video is edited. Do you find yourself lying awake at night, your body exhausted but your mind running a marathon? In our fast-paced world, true rest has become a rare luxury. We have engineered beds of perfect comfort, yet our minds remain filled with anxiety, worry, and an endless loop of thoughts. This immersive audio experience is a deep, compassionate journey into the heart of ancient Buddhist wisdom, reframed as a practical guide for modern life. This is not about quick fixes or fighting your mind. It is a gentle path to fundamentally change your relationship with your thoughts, your body, and the night itself. Over the next several hours, we will explore the timeless teachings that have helped millions find peace for over 2,500 years. You will be guided through meditative practices designed to calm your nervous system, release physical tension, and cultivate a heart of profound kindness and self-compassion. This video is designed for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the pressures of life, curious about practical spirituality, and seeking a deeper solution to stress, anxiety, and sleeplessness. Let this be your sanctuary. In this journey, you will explore understanding and calming the monkey mind, guided mindfulness of breathing, and anapanasati to anchor your awareness, a complete body scan meditation to release deep-seated physical tension, the practice of loving kindness, metta, to soothe an anxious heart, profound wisdom on impermanence and non-self to dissolve the roots of worry, practical ways to create a sanctuary for sleep and a life of greater peace. But US, Zem Tuiching, Hien Tinting Tuzui, of course. Here are the YouTube description, keywords, title options, and thumbnail text suggestions based on the script we've created.